Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Here.
Member Clerk Raymond, not here yet. Member Covino,
Here.
Member Espejo,
Here.
Member Impemba, Member LaRue.
Here.
Great. And let's continue with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The town of Burlington will be holding the May 20th meeting of the Planning Board as a virtual electronic meeting due to the current state of emergency due to the COVID-19 virus. As such, the governor issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law 30A, Section 20.
This meeting is held via Cisco WebEx and is accessible via the following. If you go to http://townofburlington.webex.com, you can access this meeting with the meeting number 129-094-5991, and the password to get in is 1645. You can also join us by phone at 617-315-0704. This meeting is being broadcast on the VCAT government channel, which you can find on Comcast channel 2099, RCN 15, and Verizon 41. We're also streamed on Facebook Live and via the VCAT Facebook page. The public will be able to make comments during this hearing during the time for public comments. Questions can be asked via WebEx and the WebEx chat function, Facebook Live, by calling the planning office 781-270-1645, and by email planning@burlington.org during the meeting. All persons wishing to ask a question or make a comment must identify themselves beforehand. If you have any questions regarding participation, please call planning staff at 781-270-1645 or email us at planning@burlington.org.
Thank you. We have a few items being continued off of this week's agenda. May I have a motion, please?
Motion to take item 7T out of order for discussion purposes.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney, yes.
We need to read item T.
Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, I got, okay,
Oh, it's okay.
Just got excited.
I know, on a roll.
Moving right along.
Item T.
You have to read what we're continuing and then we're good.
That vote
Okay.
was just to take it out of order, Kristen.
Oh, I'm moving too fast. Ernie.
All right, so so we are doing a roll call. Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, not here yet. Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue,
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
Item T is a public hearing, application for approval of an amendment to a definitive subdivision 4 and 5 Redmond Street, Murray Hills Incorporated as the applicant.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of June 3rd, 2021, as requested in an email by the applicant dated June 3rd,
No, that should be dated May 19th, 2021.
May 19th, 2021. That's what I said.
I think that one's on me too. Sorry, Liz.
Chairman Rappaport,
But do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to take items 7U through 7X together and out of order for discussion purposes.
second,
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue,
yes,
Item U is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.1 light manufacturing or processing plants of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions, 1 North Avenue, Desktop Metal Incorporated is the applicant. Item V is continued public hearing, an application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.2 laboratories engaged in research, experimental, and testing activities included but not limited to the fields of biology, chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, medicine, and physics, subject to the planning board making the findings set forth in section 8.3.7.4 of the zoning bylaws and subject to the applicable rules and regulations of the Board of Health of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. 1 North Avenue, Desktop Medical Inc. is the applicant. Item W is a continued public hearing, applicant for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.4 hazardous and toxic materials, chemical use storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. 1 North Avenue, Desktop Metal Inc. is the applicant. Item number X is a continued public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.5 generation or storage of hazardous waste limited to the volumes classified as a very small quantity generator of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. 1 North Avenue, Desktop Metal Inc. is the applicant.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue these matters to the planning board meeting of June 3rd, 2021, as requested in an email by the applicant dated
May 19th, 2021.
precisely.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
yes,
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Great. Next is citizens' time. Anyone wishing to ask a question shall identify themselves prior to the question. Anyone, if they would like to speak, please raise your hand and speak. Please, staff, if anyone is on our Facebook chat or on a regular chat, please let me know. Anyone?
Seeing no one, Madam Chair.
Great. Let's move on to announcements. Liz?
Yeah, sure. So the zoning bylaw review sign subcommittee is going to meet May 24th at 5:30 p.m. That's via Zoom. The Housing Partnership Committee, which Ernie Covino, I think, is vice chair of, is May 27th at 6 o'clock p.m. That's via WebEx. And Memorial Day is coming up. It's May 31st, Monday, and all town offices will be closed. And that is all for me, Madam Chair. I don't know if other members have other announcements.
Does anyone else have anything to share? Okay. We do not have any legal notices. We do not have any non-approvals or administrative matters. So we'll move on to matters of appointment.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7A through 7G together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
yes,
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Item A is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 12.1.5 PD special permit of the zoning bylaw provisions at 25 Network Drive. The Norblue Company is the applicant. Public hearing, item B is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.1 light manufacturing and processing of plants of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. Again, 25 Network Drive. The Norblue Company is the applicant. Item C is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.2 laboratories engaged in research, experimental, and testing activities included but not limited to the fields of biology, chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, medicine, and physics, subject to the planning board making the findings set forth in section 8.3.7.4 of the zoning bylaws and subject to the applicable rules and regulations of the Board of Health of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. 25 Network Drive. Norblue Company is the applicant. Item D is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.3 wholesale trade and warehousing of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions. 25 Network Drive. The Norblue Company is the applicant. Item E is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.6.7, discharges from man-made structures into the wetlands of the Northwest Park, PDD bylaw provisions, 25 Network Drive, the Nordblum Company as the applicant. Item F is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.7.5, accessory health club located entirely within commercial residential facility of the Northwest Park, PDD bylaw provisions, 25 Network Drive, the Nordblum Company is the applicant. Item G is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.7.19, storage of oils and fuels, petroleum products, including storage for an on-site heating purposes and landscaping maintenance equipment in excess of 50 gallons of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions, 25 Network Drive. The Nordblum Company is the applicant.
Good evening, Madam Chair. For the record, Robert Buckley, Reamer and Bronstein. I have with me this evening Todd Fremont Smith from the Nordblum Company, Frank DePietro and Marissa Valentino from BSC, our site civil team. We're here. Am I okay? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can
Yep.
hear you. Thank you.
Okay, we're here this evening to address the property located at 25 Network Drive. For those who are on the board may recall that there is an existing special permit and site plan approval for a 270,000 square foot office building at that site. Needless to say, over the last few years, that has been marketed, and the office market is not as robust as one would have expected or would appreciate. That being said, Burlington has become in the last year one of the premier locations to attract life science companies, both in terms of research and production. And I think that's a combination of three elements. One, the town was very proactive through the planning department of putting in place the regulations and zoning to encourage the development of these facilities, which, if you read the media, every community is trying to obtain. Two, your sister board, the Board of Health, has been at the forefront and is recognized as one of the best in terms of adopting and implementing regulations with their staff for the monitoring, control, and permitting of these facilities. And that is extremely important because these companies are investing millions and millions of dollars in terms of development. They want to make sure that the community understands their business, and the combination between the planning initiatives as well as the Board of Health has put that message out into the marketplace very strongly. And third, Burlington is rich in amenities that are desirous for the talent that will be working in these establishments. And needless to say, after last Monday night, I know personally I've received numerous calls inquiring as to how does one get into Burlington. This is, I think, a reflection of the hard work over the last few years of the professional staff of the town, as I just indicated. It is also a culmination of probably 8 or 9 months of intense meetings at the development team level, because these buildings are very complex in terms of the design, the flexibility, and numerous experts are brought to the table to work on the ultimate plan. Nordblum has brought together on this team some of the more renowned engineers, life science architects in the nation to prepare this facility for your consideration and hopefully for long-term viability in the town. And we're going to go through a presentation. I think Todd will take it, but I hope you share the excitement that we do that this is the culmination and hopefully the beginning, a new beginning of a new industry that will put Burlington in the forefront as it has traditionally in the past. Todd?
All right, now I have to work this thing. Bear with me. You see beautiful ocean? There we go. All right, well, thanks, Bob. And I know that the planning board and the staff in particular are keenly aware that the office market is a bit in limbo at this point. We are seeing significant efficiency, a push for efficiency on space as people envision, I think, more of a 3-day a week in the office as opposed to 5 days a week in the office. No one knows where that's going to go, but at the same time that the Boston area office market is a little bit quiet, as we all know, the lab market, the life science market is on fire. So companies are getting forced out of Cambridge. As I think I've told the board before, Watertown became an overflow for life science companies. That's now full, sold out. Waltham is seeing this, but Burlington is also seeing the migration of stage 2 and stage 3 companies, and even public companies, which are larger and need 50,000 feet. A stage 2 company, which just gets their first round of financing, is typically looking for about 25,000 square feet. Stage 3 is looking for about 50,000 feet. And then beyond that, the tenants we're seeing in the market are 100,000 feet and above. So we are talking tonight about Network Drive. 25 Network Drive was the last unbuilt site at Network Drive. And as Bob said, Nordblom is the proponent. Starwood Capital, just incidentally, is our capital partner on this asset. But we have assembled a team of designers, including the Richmond Group, which is a boutique design build life science firm out of Kendall Square, AHA, which is a mechanical engineering firm, world famous lawyers, world famous civil engineers, and we're working with SGA, the architecture firm, which is doing quite a bit of life science these days, particularly in Watertown, and MDLA on landscape architecture. So you all know this Network Drive site. This is at the northern end of the Northwest Park campus. And all the amenities to which Bob referred, Third Ave, Lifetime Fitness, Archer Hotel, Wegmans, all these things really move the meter when tenants come out. And we are seeing large life science tenants, as I don't want to speak for Merck Millipore, but that the same thing happened. They came in from the woods and they wanted to be in a more active, amenity-rich environment. So as these tenants come out to 128, they're being forced out to 128, they are looking for restaurants, they're looking for supermarkets, they're looking for hotels, they're looking for all the things that we have in this intersection of Route 3 and 128. We are building a large, growing cluster of life science companies. There are a couple 3D printing companies on this slide, but we already have 2 or 3 life science tenants at Network Drive, one of whom is growing rapidly. We have a large medical device cluster at Northwest Park. And we are seeing, obviously, you see at the right-hand side of the plan, anchored by Millipore. But these tenants are coming. They do like the Burlington location. They like the Route 3 access, and they like the amenities. Just zooming in a bit on Network Drive, you can see my cursor, but circling around the 25 Network Drive site. This is a site that, working with the board, we permitted 270,000 square feet of office. Several years ago, we've continued to market that. It's really not moving. There are not a lot of build-to-suit tenants on the office side these days. But again, we're getting a lot of interest from life science companies. So the idea would be to permit a different building on this site and go fishing. Just a diagram of Network Drive. I know the board knows this, but for those watching at home, it's a fully amenitized 900,000 square foot campus, really like a college. It's got everything here from outdoor space. It's very much an internally circulating campus where people, once they get on the campus, they leave their cars behind and they walk around the campus. Either on a nice day, they walk outside, but on a rainy day, they can go through these habit trails that connect all the buildings. We have everything up there from golf simulators to fitness centers to Starbucks, coffee shops to full service cafeteria. I won't dwell on this. We also have an express MBTA bus to Alewife, which is a big point of tenants coming out here from Cambridge. This is the Winter Garden, which you've seen this before, but this is where all the buildings kind of connect into this Winter Garden, so they can people can get out of their office and move about the campus without walking through the snow or the rain. In an up market, we see a lot of game playing. In a down market, not so much. But just kidding. But this is the kind of environment that young employees want to be in. If they're going to come to the office these days, you have to give them a reason to come to the office, and it has to be fully amenitized. Large cafe on site, outdoor dining. We do barbecues. We do live music after work. So getting back to the site, you can see the star. This was a site that was partially built out by Sun Microsystems 20 years ago. You can see some of the parking lots were even installed, but nothing has happened up here since. So this is the footprint of the building that you folks approved last time. It was an up to 270,000 square foot office building with an adjacent garage. And if you just look at the general site circulation, the ring road, this main boulevard that goes across the top of the plan, that's going to stay. Frank and his team have kept a lot of the periphery of the site will remain the same in terms of drainage and circulation of cars around the site, but the building footprint will change with your permission. So again, these drawings are not lined up, so I apologize. At the top of the site off camera is Middlesex Turnpike. So north is up, south is down. And the way that this building is being designed is for 2 tenants of each over 100,000 square feet. What we're seeing in the market as these tenants grow and move out to the 128 is that they're looking for what we call hybrid buildings. So they're looking for corporate headquarters. They're looking for office, laboratory space, and also what they call GMP. GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Process. It's a very high-tech acronym. But what it really means is it's an FDA-regulated biomanufacturing facility where they manufacture the drugs that go into the human body that they invented back in Kendall Square when they were 3,000 square feet. Now they're 100,000 feet, and they want to take it vertically all the way from the executive suites, marketing, CEO level, all the way through the biomanufacturing, and they all want it under one roof. So this building is being set up for 2 tenants. Could be built in 2 phases. I think likely will be built in 1 phase. There's a 3-hour firewall running through the middle of the building. That has to do with how these companies can manage their relationship with the FDA. They have to separate themselves to a very high degree from the company next door. They cannot have shared loading. They cannot have shared utilities. They cannot have shared sewer or water. Everything has to be documented as separate, and everything under their roof has to be controllable so they can maintain their FDA approval. So at the top of the plan, we'll get into the overall master plan a little bit more. This is the lower end. This site is built into a grade. So the lower end of the building, the lower side of the building, we're thinking is more GMP manufacturing, more trucking. And this is where the GMP, I'll show you a section of the building in a minute, but you'll see that there's area here for backup generators for each tenant. There's an area here for switch gear because each of these tenants will draw quite a bit of power. They need their own private switch. We're already in negotiations with Eversource to bring 13.8 power out to the site to run this building. And you'll see a location for vertical tanks, which are very likely nitrogen tanks and argon tanks, that kind of thing. Very likely gases. We will get into more detail about the chemistry of this building and how these buildings operate with the Board of Health next week. We're going to be bringing the Richmond group with us, and we anticipate very detailed questions about what goes on in these buildings from a chemical storage. And of course, when we have a tenant, and incidentally, we think we might have a tenant for half this building, we would have to come back to the planning board in great detail, tell you exactly what they plan to do in the building. This is really just an overview of the site plan that we're trying to pivot towards. At the bottom of the diagram, you'll see more of the corporate entrance. The office level is at the upper level. There is the provision for small truck loading because this level will also service the laboratories. So sometimes labs need to have small box trucks coming and going. The tenant we're speaking with currently does not want the loading at this level. We're probably just going to put windows in. But for the long-term viability of this building, which is multi-story, we want to be able to get at this building. It is a science building. We want to be able to get at it from both sides and get at it on each level. And I'll show you that more diagrammatically in a minute. So again, north is the left side, the Middlesex Turnpike side of this section, and right is the south side of the site plan. And you can see that on the north side, the left side, you'll see this really should say 15 over 15 foot clear. So there's a 30-foot clear GMP manufacturing area. And then above that, you have a GMP mechanical mezzanine where they put all their equipment, their freezer farms, their vacuum pumps. Anything they can do above the drug manufacturing level and not have to go into those clean rooms they try to do above that level because every person they permit to come into this GMP facility has to be certified and tested and all that. So to the degree that they can do mechanical maintenance or turning valves or whatever it is on the mezzanine above, that's the preferable building. Above that, you see an office and lab level. And then on the roof, you see a lab penthouse mechanical level. So 3 stories on the right-hand side. If you were on the south side of this building, it's really 2 stories with a mechanical mezzanine. And then on the other side, it's a 30-foot tall GMP manufacturing facility. So here's a rendering. You're coming up the drive closest to Kent Cottage, access road from Middlesex Turnpike. And this is the corner of the building. If you went down the center boulevard and frankly talk about the site planning, you would come to basically the main campus, the Winter Garden. But this is just an early rendering of this building. You notice that it's multi-story. You notice that there's some switch gear out front. There's most of the gear we're trying to put around the back of the building, or at least on the side of the building. This is really the ceremonial entrance. This will be where some company has their name and their CEO will come in every day and park here, as well as the laboratory technicians that go into the building at this level. And as they get closer to the building, again, this wants to be a science building. It wants to be a biomanufacturing building. So we're designing it with that aesthetic. This is a reusable multi-tenant building that will have a shelf life of 50 to 60 years. The leases that we intend to sign in this building will be 12 to 15 years. But typically, because of the amount of money that's going to be spent in this building by the tenant, in addition to us, they're very, very sticky tenants. Once these companies come and start to produce their drugs, they tend to stay and they modify the building, but they stay a very long time because they could spend $1,000 a square foot inside this building. So it's very hard to move once they make that investment. As you get closer to the building, again, this is more MDLA's work. We anticipate very much of a college campus type landscaping with professionally designed hardscape, softscape. And this is very early, but again, this is the entrance to phase 1 or the first image that we showed you coming up the access drive. So the building, the spec sheet on a building like this, very different than an office building, costs about $150 a square foot more just to get the building to a lab-ready shell. So on top of the site work, on top of the base building, what you would normally pay for an office building, you're paying another $150 a square foot. And then the tenant improvement allowance on a building like this jumps from about $50 a foot to about $200 a foot. So an enormous amount of expense is going into preparing the building for the tenant. And it takes about a year to actually order the equipment, install the equipment. We're going to overlap that obviously with the core shell construction, but it takes a long time to get this equipment, which is in very high demand across the country, get it on the roof, get it certified, get it ready for a lab user to come in and start to set up their own system. So high power use, we're looking at about 12,000 amps for the 270,000 square feet. We're talking with Eversource. They're going to need backup generators to support the lab cell cultures, and they're going to need backup generators to support the GMP manufacturing. Those are very likely diesel-powered generators. It'll very likely be that each tenant will negotiate them down to about 1 generator for each side of the building. They will be on the lower level. They'll be landscaped. We have quite a few diesel generators already at the Network Drive site. They're all triple hull tanks. They're very, very safe. I know that's a concern. We can talk about it more, but it's going to be critical for these tenants to be able to back up the millions of dollars of research and production that they have going on in these buildings. On the HVAC side, these lab areas are 100% outside air, once through air, and so they're very, very robust users of mechanical systems. So here's pulling back on the stick a little bit. You see the road coming up from Network Drive, this little access road, and you see the access road around what was Palomar, was building 15. We're talking about building 25. And as I said, the site circulation in general is very similar to what you permitted before. It's just the building footprint, which has changed. And as I said, the site falls off from the middle of the plan to the top of the plan. So it works very well with a multi-story building and with GMP facility sort of built into the grade. These guys like that. They don't they don't want too many windows because UV light can interfere with their process. So they actually like this design. We actually have a tenant that we're trading paper with already. This has really captured their imagination. And as I said, it's very likely we'll build phase 2 as part of the initial phase. And we'll just go to market and look for another tenant for the second half of the building. As you come down this Boulevard Road from right to left, you'll notice that we are, and Frank and Marissa can talk about this more, that today is a dead-ended road. We are asking permission to drive that into a right turn and a left turn to give a better entry sequence to both 35 Network Drive and 95 Network Drive. 95 Network Drive, we are also contemplating converting to lab. In fact, we're working with Richmond Group on that right now. And we have a tenant interested in that building as well. So the exciting part is, as the office market gets a little quiet, a little confused, the lab market is really recognizing Burlington's platinum status, their move to MWRA, their life science friendly zoning, and they're really starting to come. And I can tell you that elsewhere in the market, when one tenant comes, we get 5 tenants. You know, so if 5 tenants come to Burlington, you're going to get 20. They really like to be in a lab cluster. They like to be in a lab market. And for a long time, Burlington was not a lab market. In fact, just the opposite, but it has turned the corner, and right now the tenants are really coming. So I think I'll turn this over to Frank and Marissa to talk about some of the details. Just one comment, this is a slide we did for the old site plan, so ignore the footprint of this building. This is the old office building, but BSC did this to show all the sidewalks and the connections. We are seeing a lot of people who work at Network Drive walk down North Avenue to 3rd Avenue, or they ride bikes. We have bike stations up there where they can just grab a bike. So the pedestrian movement tends to be within the campus, and it tends to be down North Avenue towards 3rd Avenue, or to Lifetime Fitness, which is just off camera to the left here. So the amenities are there for the tenants. Frank, I don't know if you want to talk technical for a while.
Sure. Well, it'll be hard to follow you, Todd, with all that excitement.
It's very exciting.
The more dry stuff. One item on the accessible, sort of the last slide Todd had, what's not shown on there is the sort of walkway that comes up behind Lifetime Athletic, sort of through the woods there and ties into that North Ave extension. You can sort of see there's a paper roadway that runs up through that area there. So there's actually another walking route that gets you down to Middlesex Turnpike, and it's getting more built up over time, more around the back of the site near Route 3. So there is another link, if you will, for pedestrian access through the area. Now if you can go back to the more boring site plan, thank you. So one of the items that we wanted to sort of just touch in general, if you were to drive up the access drive, Network Drive from Middlesex Turnpike, you get to the top of the hill there, you see a driveway that services the old 50 Network Drive, which was the old Palomar building. The intent here is to change that from just a parking lot driveway with a bunch of openings to get into the parking lots at 15 Network to a boulevard. So one of the things you'll see, and you probably noticed it on the landscape plan, was that we've widened up the walkways on either side. There are connections. You can sort of see those look like a little brick pattern from each of the 2 phases. They're going to have a pedestrian access that will take them across the new boulevard, and there'll be a new sidewalk, a wide sidewalk with landscaping along. We're going to confuse you again. So the top of the page is south now. The bottom of the page near Network Drive is north. So on the south side, you're going to have an access drive, pedestrian access that will take you down toward that winter garden at the, again, toward the right-hand side, which would be to the west. The building itself, as Todd said, is at 2 elevations. So the north side, the one near the boulevard, is at elevation about 190. The side on the north side, or the lower side, is at 176 or so. And again, that grade change will be the first part of that GMP program below grade. What we've done here is, as Todd said, if you look back, we've mirrored where we can the original approved office building. However, because a bioscience does not need as much parking, we've been able to add in a good amount of green space. So if you were to go back to the approved office building at 270,000 square feet, parking ratio of 3 to 3.5, you'd be looking at over 800 parking spaces to meet that demand. Here with the 270, we're looking at a parking ratio of about 2.5 spaces per thousand, which gets us down to about 440 spaces being needed. And that allows us to increase the impervious area. And this is one of the rare jobs I think I've ever worked on, thanks to Marissa and Emily and the other folks on the BSC team, where the post-development actually has a reduction in impervious area. So from what's out there right now, when we're done, we will have an increase of about 1/3 of an acre in impervious area. And again, you can't see it here, but you certainly saw it. There are a number of small park areas around the building and also throughout the parking lot. The site is relatively steep, so while it's flat up at the top or the south side, you'll see the little lines for the contours going down. We are meeting all the grade along the perimeter roadway, which is Network Drive. As we did with 15 Network Drive, we're reducing some of the driveways going out to that ring road. So again, we're cutting down the potential for conflicts. And what we're ending up doing is having 2 sets of loading docks. So the loading docks at the top of the building or the south side, they're for the typical pickup truck, the 40-foot long single unit vehicle, more narrow. The proposed loading docks on the bottom or the northerly side, they're going to be for the 60 to 65-foot major delivery trucks, 18-wheelers. And that's, again, to pick up whatever's being done at the GMP. We will have amenities along the outside of the site. As I mentioned, there will be interconnections, not only across the street to 15, but also to 35, which is to the left of the site, and then also going down into the Winter Garden. One of the things we're really looking at here is we're sort of going beyond the perimeter of this particular lot for 25 Network Drive. So you see some work being done, again, to the right-hand side towards 35 Network Drive. We're proposing essentially to resurface that parking lot. So all that lower parking lot will be new. We are modifying some of the existing driveway entrances on the 15 Network Drive site. And again, we are modifying that area, adding overall green space and landscaping areas so that this site, again, will be much greener, much more friendly for pedestrian access than currently exists. The current site, the only way you can get from one lot to another is to go back out to the ring road. So the sort of the new idea that Noblem came up with, let's have some roadways that actually go from the end of the new boulevard down to have access internally to 35, and then you'll see it under the minor engineering plans coming up, access 95 Network Drive. So again, we're being more efficient with how the internal circulation is working on this project. A couple of things just in passing, and that is we are noting, as Todd said, the emergency generators, the transformers, the potential for outdoor storage of chemicals. These are not tied to any particular tenant at this point, but using the Richmond Group's expertise, these are what could be anticipated. So we wanted to be conservative with what we're showing on the site. Todd, I wondered if you could sort of go to maybe the minor engineering change set of plans. So again, this is an overview of the entire Northwest Network Drive site. The middle piece is really the 25 Network Drive that you've seen in detail. We have a couple of other sheets that sort of look at the pieces that some of which aren't contained in that 25 network, but are outside of it. And we'll set these up as a minor engineering change, wherein we show the existing plan and we show the proposed changes in red. If you can sort of go to the next sheet, Todd.
I don't think I have a next sheet.
Oh, okay, well then. So I'll use your imagination and you can sort of see. So we've sort of talked about the access that goes from that end of the new boulevard going north or down to provide access to the parking at 35 Network Drive. There'll be sidewalks along that we'll be modifying that area, adding some additional parking areas, and redoing the parking lot. So again, as I mentioned earlier, that pavement looks new for all of them. If we go again to the sort of the top of the page to the 15 Network Drive, you can sort of see where we are modifying a new driveway that runs between 25 Network Drive through the 15 Network Drive site, and then goes down into the 95 Network Drive site. What we're showing on the red lines, so I'll have to keep you in suspense till next meeting, till you get to look at the plans, is we're really looking at modifying the existing entrance into Network Drive. So that whole area right by that corner of the building will have new access points. There'll be landscaped areas, outdoor seating areas. We are modifying some of the existing parking, actually relocating it that's right up against the building. We're going to relocate that into the existing parking area, and modifying some of the access in from the existing parking. We're basically maintaining the existing parking ratio overall, but we're modifying that. And if you sort of look on either side of that driveway that runs through 15 down to 95, we're modifying some of the existing parking areas there so that we have more open space. So again, that helps contribute to that 0.3 acres of reduction overall. And then you can get sort of see a big picture of what's happening at the 15 Network Drive, where again, we're cutting off 3 of the driveways. We're relocating, we're adding islands in the area there and providing that pedestrian access. Marissa, have I missed anything that's important? Or
Frank, I could finish this. Frank, I could finish
Sure.
this presentation. We could go back to your drawings if Marissa wants to pull them up. It's up to you.
I think, I mean, again, certainly if there's questions, I think this is an overview, and so I'd be happy to answer more detailed stuff.
We can do it next time. We can do it next time too.
Yes.
I apologize. So again, we're asking permission to alter the footprint of this building, and then we're asking permission to extend this road left and right at the end here, so we can provide better access to 95 and 35. And I apologize for not having those drawings. We can bring that next time. Schedule, we're going fast. We have a tenant that's at least 100,000 feet, maybe 140,000 feet, that loves this building, and we're trading paper already. So we're already in design with Richmond Group and Spagnuolo Gasness, but we'd be hoping to start construction of this building in the fall. So that's how quickly this could move. These lab tenants are in the market now. I don't know if they're going to be there in 24 months, so we want to try to capture them and get some buzz going up here. And then just more generally, the lab market, there's over 3 million square feet of lab demand, unmet lab demand in the greater Boston market. So these tenants are out there. They're good paying jobs. They generate, as Frank said, fewer cars than office because they only need about 2 or 2.5 per thousand, because the same person who has a lab has an office. They're very diversified, as we have found recently from the normal business cycle, and they have much higher rents, which help to support the local tax base. So we think that this is a great sector of the market to chase, and we hope you agree.
So Madam Chair, would welcome any questions the board may have at this point.
We know this is all new, so you can bring your questions to the next hearing, but a lot of the issues I think the town will want to feel comfortable with are the Board of Health type issues, the chemicals and what's going on in the building and what are these tenants doing. And I said that's going to come back here as well, because we're going to need special permits for each of these tenants, and this is really just more a change in the footprint, and just to let you know that we are chasing these tenants and we are seeing them in Burlington.
And a lot of those technical issues will be user specific. So the way this is set up, the Board of Health weighs in on it as well as the planning board.
Madam Chair, I think you're muted.
That's probably why I can't hear me, huh? Vice Chairman Gaffney, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the question I have right now is just procedural. As I look at what we're talking about here, we're talking about special permits, and I don't know if I see the minor engineering change on here. Is that separate, or did that not just get covered? Normally, when we do special permits, that we have the company in mind, like you guys said, and it sounds like by your time frame, we'll have that for the next meeting or so, and who that is, and get the details of what they're going to be bringing to the party. But yeah, the minor engineering change I don't see on the agenda. Did I miss that, or is that just procedural? Maybe
Well,
just.
the plans were
I'll ask
submitted.
Bob, I'll ask from the staff, why that's just not on the agenda, if I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, the minor engineering change, as we're trying to put them all together, they will be on the agenda at the next meeting, so we can discuss all the site plan together.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, because normally with these special permits, it's not the developer that is the applicant, it's the actual company that's the applicant. So this is a bit upside down, where I think the minor engineering change, or the engineer, I'll call it an engineering change because it's not quite minor in my mind, but that would be with regard to the developer. So for me, the process here is a bit unusual, upside down, if you will. So maybe the applicant can be the actual company, and so we have that kind of documented as usual.
So, Member Gaffney, or Madam Chair, if I may also, if you recall, item A, which is the application for the approval of special permit 1215, 1215 in PDs is a site plan. So
Okay.
the site plan, the minor engineering pieces are only the pieces that are the internal site drive that are off the 25 site.
Okay.
The 1215 covers the whole site plan here.
Okay.
So it is included in this list. It's just in PDs, site plans are special permits.
Just the only thing I had was the existing health, the health center, or in the main campus, was that the original PDD with Sun Microsystems way back when?
The 175 Health Club was original to the
Okay.
the Sun PD.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Member Cavino?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions, some historical and some current. I wonder, maybe Todd, is 15 what we called the Palomar building, is that occupied or is that empty right now, Todd?
That is occupied with high-tech tenants, and I'm not on the management side, Member Covino, but my understanding is there are not a lot of people in it today. We're hoping,
Okay. Yep.
hoping they come back, but it is occupied.
Okay, and I do remember when we were permitting that building, there was a lot of discussion about sidewalks down to the area of, I guess it was the pewter pot back then, wasn't it? That driveway that goes down, and there was a problem with putting them in. I don't know whether it was an economic problem or whether it's actually a topographical problem. Do you remember, and has that changed, or is that still the same? Is there a way to walk from, in other words, is there a way to walk from this building down to, you know what I'm saying?
It's a good question. I believe it's not a money issue. It's a geologic grade issue, and I can let Frank answer that a little more detail.
Sure. So, a couple things. That the grade that of the existing roadway coming up from Middlesex Turnpike, which is called Network Drive, up to the top of that hill, has a grade of anyway 8 to 9%.
Okay.
That is not handicap accessible, and there are steep slopes on some portions. There are wetlands on some portions. You would not be able to create a sidewalk that met the accessible and grades of 5% or less, with stopping every 50 or so feet for a flat area, without impacting wetlands, without impacting sort of a grade change. And some of those wetland areas are also now sort of conservation restrictions, so you can't go into those as well. So the access that is more handicap accessible is the one that goes down the North Ave extension into Northwest Park.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Thank you, Frank. That's that you kind of jogged my memory, and I think we did spend some time in that way back when, and that's probably the same conclusion we came up with. Also, while you're up, the original plan that we approved way back when contained a garage. This does not. Are you anticipating garage at all here, Todd?
Not as part of this
Frank?
plan. As a lab user, these folks just don't need as much parking. So as Frank said, we reduced the parking count. I think there's always the ability at Network Drive to add parking structures, and we've talked about that in the past. We really have never had a problem parking at Network Drive. I think post-COVID, post-Zoom, we're not going to have a problem at Network Drive. But if we do, Ernie, I mean, we have to make sure these buildings are marketable. There are some areas that Frank and his team have studied where we could build some drive-on parking decks if we needed to add more. We don't think
That's kind of why I'm asking the question here, Todd, was because the topography seems to be possibly suitable for it for even like a deck. So I didn't know
we
if that
agree.
was
We
considered
agree.
or whatever.
I don't know, Bob, if structured parking is allowed in this community.
It is allowed. It is.
Yeah, the whole PDD allows structured parking, I think, right? And the last thing, I guess, and this is probably a Todd question, if your tenant doesn't need all the parking but may in the future, would you consider leaving some parking in reserve until it's needed? That's
We would always consider that. This particular tenant, I think this is almost a build to suit that this tenant's going to tell us exactly how many spaces.
okay. Yep.
But we could always be willing to consider that.
Okay. Thank you. All set, Madam Chair, for now.
Thank you, Ernie. Member Spaho.
Thanks, Madam Chair. My only question is, you mentioned the potential tenant did not have interest in access on the south side of the building, and you weren't going to accommodate that. Does that mean you're going to do with both halves of the building or just the half that they wanted? And also, is that easily convertible if this tenant doesn't really work out or you want to change it to have access on both sides?
So our plan is if this first tenant doesn't want the upper level loading, we would just put in a glass window, the same size as a loading dock. We do want to design a building which has longevity, in which will have residual value in the market. So we're trying to, as much as they're trying to get us to push and pull on the building, we're trying to make sure we have a workable, reusable shell, because there's an enormous investment going in here. So it's a little bit surprising to me that they don't want some loading at the lab level, but this, again, I think they're thinking this is much more of a corporate headquarters relocation. So their upper level was going to be much more of a headquarters location as opposed to a research facility, although they're going to do both. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we are preserving the ability to do small scale loading on the upper level.
So you won't be doing it on either side then? You'll just be doing the glass wall?
I think if on the second phase, we would, if it's very easy for me to put a glass window that I can pull out and put a loading dock in. It's a little easier to do that than it is to go the other way around. So I think we would put the windows in on the upper level for now.
Gotcha. That's all I had. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member
No, I'm good right now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member LaRue.
I do not have any other questions. My fellow board members have asked them, but I do have to thank Ernie for that memory pewter pot, which used to be the only place open past 11 p.m. when I was in high school. It's been a while. No, I don't have any other questions though. Thank you.
Thank you. Did Member Clerk Raymond join us? The opportunity if he did. I don't have anything additional to add. I am pleased to hear that you'll be signing a lease by the end of this month, so that when we do meet again, you can share with us who will be joining the community, or hopefully joining the community. you know, I like the idea of understanding, you know, what type of chemical storage we are going to in fact be having at that property rather than what could be. I think it's kind of, it's important to me anyways.
So we're gonna try to get that lease done or that letter of intent done, but that's my goal. I can't promise it, but that's my goal.
Okay, I understand.
Cool.
Thank you. Brady, did you want to read through the departmental reports?
I certainly can, Madam Chair. Currently, we only have economic development comments. And Melissa Tentakoulis, the Economic Development Director, provided the following for us. She fully supports the proposal as it is consistent with the town's goals of supporting Burlington's enterprises and industries to adapt to changing market and service conditions, and will assist in maintaining Burlington's status as a regional leader in the commercial, health, and retail sectors. And so far, that's our only comment from other departments at this time.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone would wish to speak on this matter, please identify themselves. Okay, may I have a motion?
Madam Chair, can I just say a few things?
Sure, of course.
I just wanted to say, we've been working with NORPLM and folks on kind of the beginning thinking of this project. And I will say, I've been really impressed with the team they put together with the Richmond group. And, you know, it's, you know, when you talk to someone and it's like the first 5 seconds of talking to them, you're like, wow, you know so much about this. So I know they're coming to the Board of Health meeting next week. I don't know if any folks from the Richmond group are coming to our meetings, but I just, it's amazing how much insight that they gave in such a short period of time in terms of what these buildings need, not necessarily even specific tenants, but just what a life science building looks like, needs, and how it breathes and functions and lives. So I think that would be beneficial for this group to hear if they were part of our upcoming meetings at some point. Or if, and certainly about the Board of Health conversations, I'm sure they'll have a robust conversation with them. So anyway, I'm really encouraged. I mean, this site is a site that we previously permitted. It's on that list of permitted, unbuilt, shovel ready. What's wrong? Why isn't it going anywhere? So, you know, and it's a premier site. So I think for us, this is certainly a you know, win-win previously developed site into, you know, the future. So, anyway, just, oh, and then just to point out the truck traffic that we were talking about, and I know I talked about this earlier. Truck traffic in like old school Burlington truck traffic is very, very different than truck traffic that we're seeing from life science industries. Whereas Frank had mentioned, well, you know, you might see I wrote down, you know, a tractor trailer. You're not going to see tractor trailers every half an hour like what we saw in the past, or even from what we were fearing about a distribution center type use. So just wanted to rest any fears along that end. So that's it for now. I look forward to future discussion.
Madam Chair, if I could just add, we agree with Kristen. We just felt today was important to give an overview because it is a very complex and innovative project, but we intend to have the consultant team at hopefully our next meeting, and it certainly will be at the Board of Health.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of June 3rd, 2021.
Second,
Chairman LaRue. Chairman Rappaport.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond. Member Covino.
Yes.
Member Espejo.
Yes.
Member Impemba.
Yes.
Member LaRue.
yes.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Take care, folks. Good night.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7H through 7K together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport.
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond. Member Covino.
Yes.
Member Espejo.
Yes.
Member Impemba.
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Item H is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 12.1.5 light manufacturing or processing plants in the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions 30 North Avenue. Glaucos is the applicant. Item I is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.1 light manufacturing or processing plants in the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions 30 North Avenue. Glaucos is the applicant. Item J is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.2 laboratories engaged in research, experimental, and testing activities included but not limited to the fields of biology, chemistry, electronics, engineering, geology, medicine, and physics, subject to the planning board making the findings set forth in section 8.3.7.4 of the zoning bylaws and subject to the applicable rules and regulations of the Board of Health of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions 30 North Avenue. Glaucos is the applicant. Item K is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 1.5.4 hazardous and toxic materials, chemical use storage, transport, disposal, or discharge of the Northwest Park PDD bylaw provisions 30 North Avenue. Glaucos is the applicant. Who is here on behalf of the applicant?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Christine Hung, attorney at Reamer Bronstein, and attorney for the applicant, Glaucos Corporation. With me tonight, I have Des Adler, who is the general manager and vice president of research and development from Glaucos Corporation. I have Enzo Scalora, president and CEO of Scalora Consulting, who is the project manager, and Shannon Burrington of Studio Troika, who is the project architect. There are other members of the project team here tonight as well, and we can introduce them as necessary. Just a little brief background. Glaucos Corporation is a cutting-edge medical technology company looking to expand their East Coast office from Waltham to Burlington at 30 North Ave. Their operations involve assembly and production of laser technology and related software used for corneal diseases, as well as R&D activities related to early stage research for new corneal diseases. Several weeks back, we were at the DCM meeting, which was very productive. And since then, we've been talking to the Board of Health staff, who've determined that we don't need to go before the board. And that earlier today, Christine Mathis provided their standard comments. The only exterior, most of the, will be like an internal fit out of the 30 North Ave, and the only exterior modifications will be a new trash dumpster as well as a recycling dumpster that will all be enclosed, but those are the only contemplated exterior site modifications. That's really all that I have to say, and what I'll do right now is turn it over to Des Adler, who can go into more detail about the operations as well as walk you through the proposed floor plan of the site. Thank you. And then after that, we'll be able to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, folks. Can you all hear me okay? Hi, so I'm Des Adler. I'm the GM and also the VP of R&D for the Glaucos East Coast facilities. I've been with the company prior to the acquisition of Avidro since about 2015. Glaucos purchased Avidro in 2019 and has since shown a very clear and compelling desire to really build and expand what we're doing here in the area. What I can do is let me give you guys like a 2-minute background on what our group does in the area and why it's so important for our patient population. And then I can walk you through the floor plan and our goals to expand in that space. So the East Coast arm of Glaucos is involved in R&D activities and light manufacturing to support a corneal disease called keratoconus. You've probably never heard of this disease. It's very rare. Basically, what happens is your cornea, which is the front part of your eye, over time becomes progressively weaker and thinner in these patients. And because your eye is pressurized with fluid, at a certain point, your cornea can't hold its shape, right? It's supposed to be kind of sphere shaped. It becomes actually kind of cone shaped. It bulges out to the front. And when it loses its shape, you no longer focus light correctly, and you in fact will lose your vision. Very serious disease, and sadly, it tends to affect very young people, right? So teenagers, people in their early 20s with their whole lives ahead of them, who find out one day that they're, eventually going to go blind. The only treatment that we had open to us before our technology came along was a corneal transplant, right? So super invasive, painful, lots of issues associated with that. What our technology does, you can think of it kind of like a super glue, right, for the cornea. So there is a drug that's applied topically to the eye. Glaukos does not produce this drug ourselves. It's produced by a contract organization at a different location. That drug goes on the front of the eye, and then we have a special ultraviolet light source that we do produce ourselves. That light source activates the drug inside the eye, and through that combined action will stiffen and restore strength to the cornea, prevent disease progression, and keep these patients out of getting a transplant. FDA approved in 2016, and it's now very much the standard of care for this disease in this country. So we're very happy with what we've been able to do for these patients, and we're very happy with Glaukos's desire to expand our operation, hopefully in Burlington, and bring even more treatments like this to these patients and others. Let me pause there. Anything I could do for you folks to answer questions about what we do or why we do it before going into the floor plan? No?
One quick question. Hi, what did you say the name of this disease was? Could you spell it for me?
Sure, it's keratoconus, K-E-R, this is like an exam now, K-E-R-A-T-O-C-O-N-U-S.
Thank you. Just curious. I wanted to look it up. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so let me see if I can figure out how to share my screen here. I guess you want to see this one. All right, can everyone see that?
Not yet.
How about now?
Yep.
Yep.
All right. So let's start with the first level. So it's a 2-level building. And what we're imagining for this site is really a combination of light manufacturing for our device component, right? Again, we're not going to be doing any kind of direct manufacturing at this facility. And also a very significant R&D footprint, along with supporting functions, right? So we'll have finance, human resources, regulatory affairs, commercial marketing functions as well here. I'll walk you through the first floor first. This is primarily going to be operation space. Okay, so on the west of the plan here, this entire area, right, is going to be where we will hopefully produce our devices. These devices are, I actually wish I had one here with me in my home office, but they're all in the Waltham office. They're a medical cart about this tall, mobile console with a touch panel interface, a articulating arm with an optical head that hangs off of it. This would all be, built, assembled, tested, packed up and shipped out of this facility from the ground floor here. So we have things like stock rooms, assembly areas, rework areas, inspection station for the quality assurance folks. And then we have our loading dock up here and finished goods. Okay. The other part of the first floor here would be office and cubicle space for people who either directly work in production or who would support them, right? So this would be the technicians, assemblers, inspection people, people who would be purchasing parts, receiving parts. All those folks would go in here. We also have 2 pilot labs. These would be shared R&D and operation space. where as we bring new technologies, kind of forward in the pipeline and get them ready for production, we build small scale units here, right? Once they're ready and locked down, they would transfer to the main production area. Towards the core here, we have conventional, IT space, server room, build space for the IT guys to build our computers for us. We have a fairly small 2 to 8 degrees Celsius storage area, stability chamber, where we would do things like life test our product shelf lives, right? We do have a small pharma warehouse. Again, this is not to produce drugs. This would be if we ever had need to pull a small sample of our drug product from the contract manufacturer and store it locally for small scale testing. Our drug, by the way, is nothing terribly exotic. It's pretty much vitamin B. Okay. Field service lab, coffee bar, lounge, a couple of other conference rooms, and then a small storage area. Any questions on the ground floor before I move on to the second floor?
No, please proceed.
Okay. So second floor is pretty much everything that's not operations, right? So we have a large R&D lab area to the southwest of the plan, and then a smaller bio and tissue lab space to the east of the plan. This lab area down here is what you would think of as kind of conventional, medical device labs. So electronics, optics. We'd have some different kinds of ultraviolet light sources in here, circuit boards, computers, dry labs, right? The lab space to the east is more basic biology, right? So we would have things that you'd see in really any bio lab. You would see HPLC analysis equipment, systems to measure the viscosity of different formulations. We do tissue testing in our line of work, and we would plan to do that also here. We don't use any human tissue. So we'd be using typically corneal tissue samples from things like rabbits and pigs. That would all happen in here. This is also where pretty much all of our small scale chemical storage and utilization would be, right? That's all used in the process of developing and testing these procedures. Up here, just pure office space, right? Offices, cubes, meeting rooms. We'll have a small lunch area. No cooking would be going on here, just microwaves and things of that nature. A training room. So we would intend to use the space to bring in folks for external training from all over the country and the world. And then on this side up here, finally, just R&D seating, right? So seating for all the engineers and biologists and physicists and AI folks who make up our staff in Waltham today. I think that's the kind of high level walkthrough. Happy to answer questions now or just proceed on.
I think we'll proceed on. Did you have anyone else from your group that would like to speak?
No, I mean, we're happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Sure. First, Brady, did you want to read through, or would you please read through the departmental reports?
Certainly, Madam Chair. So first, again, economic development. This use aligns with the town's economic development goals to cultivate innovation and job opportunities in the healthcare, research, and life science fields. The fire department will need to obtain the appropriate permit for storage of flammable/combustible liquids, gases, and solids. And then Board of Health, there's just 5 standard set of comments when we have this type of research and development/light manufacturing. I can certainly read them off for you if you'd like, but they're ones that we typically see with this type of use.
I think we should read them off, please.
Okay, certainly. The first is the applicant shall review the Burlington Board of Health biological safety regulations and document that the regulations do not apply to the proposed operations. Number 2, the applicant shall provide a hazardous materials registration form for submittal to the Board of Health, in which all quantities of hazardous materials used on-site shall be listed and the storage locations indicated on a plan of the building. 3, interior renovations are subject to the Board of Health hazardous building component management plan policy. The proponent/owner must complete a Board of Health pre-demolition / pre-renovation inspection checklist. Number 4, should a release of oil and or hazardous materials or other conditions occur that warrant notification to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection in accordance with the Massachusetts Contingency Plan or the Board of Health under the Town of Burlington Toxics and Hazardous Materials Bylaw, the applicant shall promptly notify the Board of Health of such event. And last but not least, any changes in operations or environmental conditions will be submitted to the environmental engineer or other Board of Health representative to determine whether or not an appearance before the Board of Health is required. And that is all.
Thank you, Brady. I'm going to pass this on to my board members. Is there anyone who would like to start? Does anyone have any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair, from Bill.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, this is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this this matter, please identify yourself. Or did you see anyone?
I do not currently see anyone in the chat or raising their hand, Madam Chair.
Great.
Madam
May
Chair,
I-
can I make a couple comments?
Of course you may.
Thanks. I just wanted to mention, so there's not really any exterior work, but we just need to encourage, other than we did mention the dumpsters and enclosures on site, as well as, you know, some of these sites, it's just been a while since we've really looked at parking striping for handicap spaces, et cetera. So we want to make sure that's part of, that we're making it aware that it'll be part of the decision. And lastly, I just had a question for the applicant in terms of your Waltham space, because I don't remember the answer. Are you moving your entire operation here? And I know you're taking over the whole building, but is your full operation moving here to Burlington?
Correct, that's our intention.
And and do you have other locations across the country?
Yeah, so the Glaukos HQ is on the West Coast in San Clemente, California. They've got about, I think we're about 500 people, either on the West Coast or with our global sales force. We're about 90 people in the Boston area.
And you'll be
So-
in the East Coast headquartered will be here?
Correct.
Fantastic, great. That's all I have. Thank you. So I just wanted to mention the exterior stuff that we'll be conditioning. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's fine.
Kristen.
Madam Chair,
Sure.
this is Ernie. Just a question for staff or whoever. Who was the last tenant in this building? Kristen, do you refresh my memory? Do you know?
I don't remember. I know we just had a DCM about it too. Well, there's a part of the tenant is still there. Does the applicant know that?
So
tenant-
QSA has about 10,000 square feet and they'll be moving out.
Okay, thank you.
A lot of tenants to keep track of. Thank you very much.
And the lower floor, the first floor is vacant right now.
Thank you. Okay. Would anyone else like to comment on this matter? I have a motion. Anyone?
Sure. Motion to continue this matter to planning board meeting of June 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport. Vice Chairman Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond. Member
Yes.
Covino. Member
Yes.
Espejo. Member Mpemba.
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7L through 7P together for discussion purposes.
Thank you all, and everyone stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chairman Rappaport. Vice Chairman Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond. Member Covino.
Yes.
Member Espejo.
Yes.
Member Mpemba.
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. Number L is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.2.6.9 fast order food establishments with the zoning bylaw provisions 59 through 63 Middlesex Turnpike. Noria Energy is the applicant. Item M is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.4.1.11 discharges from man-made structures into the wetlands of the zoning bylaw provisions 59 through 63 Middlesex Turnpike. Noria Energy is the applicant. Item N is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 6.1.1 non-conforming uses of the zoning bylaw provisions 59 through 63 Middlesex Turnpike. Noria Energy is the applicant. Item O is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 6.1.2 non-conforming structures and premises of the zoning bylaw provisions 59 through 63 Middlesex Turnpike. Noria Energy is the applicant. Item P is a public hearing, application for approval of a site plan 59 through 63 Middlesex Turnpike. Noria Energy is the applicant. Good evening, folks. Who is here representing Noria Energy?
Madam Chair, members of the board and staff, for the record, my name is Bill Toya. I'm representing Noria Energy this evening. I have several team members with us, and I will let them introduce themselves as they're called, if that's okay. So just quickly, the proposal before the board affords a great opportunity to vastly improve a site that is plainly nearing the end of its cycle, or regarding the former D'Angelo's land has long ago slipped from productive use. The proposal would fully rehabilitate the current retail fuel convenience use, as well as the historical fast food restaurant, into a modern, integrated, vibrant site. At present, the two buildings on the site total approximately 4,100 square feet. The single building proposed will be about 4,800 square feet. Modest change in that regard. Additionally, all new fuel dispensers are planned, being outfitted with the latest consumer features and environmental technology. Also, new underground storage tanks will be installed, again, equipped with the most current safety and environmental protections. The project will also enable Noria to upgrade the stormwater treatment system on the site, which now is largely non-existent. You'll hear more on that from Bowler Engineering. Also, through the Conservation Commission and Board of Health processes, the site will undergo substantial additional environmental improvements regarding soils, riverfront renovations, and landscaping. We have been before the Conservation Commission twice so far on this project, and the plan you see before you now that Luke just put up there, thank you, Luke, would be the plan that the Conservation Commission would approve if it's not further altered through this process. So for these reasons, we think the project meets the applicable special permit criteria, as well as the Section 6 standard of not substantially more detrimental than the existing conditions. I know the board is very familiar with that particular standard. And in fact, given the numerous material, visual, environmental improvements to the site, we don't think the project's a detriment at all, but a positive benefit. So thank you for your consideration on that statement. And with that, I'll hand it over to Luke DiStefano and further team members as we get further along. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Bill, and good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. For the record, Luke DiStefano with Bowler Engineering. As mentioned, this is a redevelopment of the property located at 59 and 63 Middlesex Turnpike there in Burlington. I am well aware that you've already had a fairly long agenda, so I will try and keep the presentation brief, but I am certainly more than happy to answer any questions the board or any members of the audience may have. I'm sure or I hope everyone is familiar with the site. As Bill mentioned, the site is currently developed with two existing uses, an existing gasoline facility and convenience store located on the northern half of the lot here, and then a vacant D'Angelo's sub shop located on the south side of the property here. The site in total is about 45,000 square feet, a little over an acre. And as mentioned, under this proposed development is going to be completely raised and rebuilt. And if ultimately approved as currently designed, Noria Energy is looking to construct a 4,875 square foot building in the back right corner of the property as shown in the rendering. That convenience store will be serviced by 21 parking spaces, 15 in the front, 3 along the northern side, and then 3 parallel parking spaces located in this area of the site here. Noria is proposing 6 multi-product fuel dispensers beneath an overhead canopy. Because those dispensers can fuel 2 cars at any one given time, this facility would have a maximum capacity of 12 vehicles fueling at once. The dispensers would be serviced, as noted, by 2 15,000-gallon underground storage tanks located on the east side of the canopy here. The site is currently designed as proposed to be accessed via 3 curb cuts. A curb cut on the south side of the site here, full movement both in and out. In the center of the property, a second full movement curb cut, and then a exit only curb cut on the northern portion of the property here. You can see hopefully from the rendering that Noria has taken great care in not extending beyond the existing developed footprint of the property. In fact, they've taken development in all portions of the site and moved it away from the sensitive Vine Brook areas of the property, both on the eastern side and then again here on the southern side of the property. And in addition to adding roughly 1,200 square feet of additional green space under the post-development condition, you can see they're also proposing an extensive landscape plan that will both help function from a wetland standpoint with some native plantings here, but also add to the aesthetic nature of the property and help enhance it overall. As Bill mentioned, we are also proposing significant improvements to the stormwater management system. Right now, the entire site basically runs untreated and unchecked into the bottom right portion of the site and then ultimately into the Vine Brook along the southern edge. Under the proposed condition, we are looking to collect and infiltrate the clean runoff generated by both the building and the overhead canopy in a small underground infiltration or retention system located on the north side of the property. The rest of the site will be collected via a series of deep sump catch basins and ultimately conveyed into a stormwater quality unit in the southwest corner of the property and then discharged back where it is currently going into the Vine Brook. But under the proposed condition, you're going to see a significant improvement, not only to the quantity of runoff exiting the property, but the quality of the runoff as well. And as mentioned, we've appeared before the Conservation Commission and received a favorable response from them based on what we consider to be significant improvements across the entire site and significant improvements to the stormwater management system. Lighting can be seen, hopefully via yellow squares here on the rendering. Another improvement, in our opinion, is that we are creating a lighting plan that is designed to put light where we want it and where we need it, which would be in areas where we will see activity, driveways, parking areas, beneath the canopy, etc., and will not result in light trespass, whether it be onto abutting properties or Middlesex Turnpike. And then lastly, all utilities to the site will be renewed and brought into the site basically underground. So again, another, in our opinion, significant improvement over the existing conditions. And with that, well, let me back up 1 second. We have received various comments both at the DCM as well as from some other town staff. And in our opinion, we've basically addressed those. Probably the biggest one was the relocation of underground storage tanks that were originally proposed a little closer to the wetland area. But what we've done is we've taken those and moved them away from the wetland and closer to the dispensing area. Unfortunately, that's about as far away as we can put them because we still need to be able to get a fuel delivery truck in there. And given the shallow nature of the depth of the site, this was really the only place we could put the underground storage tanks and still maintain a viable truck circulation path through the property. And again, with that, I'm certainly more than happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Rick. This is Bill again. I think the board will be expecting, and I think we should maybe do a quick traffic review. I think I saw Ron here.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Bill. And good evening. For the record, my name is Ron Mueller with Ron Mueller and Associates, the traffic consultant for the project. So we did a full traffic impact and access study for this project, which is, as both Bill and Luke mentioned, essentially a replacement of the existing gas station from going from 8 vehicle fueling positions to 12, and from a 2,000 square foot convenience store to about 4,800 square feet. What's also important to note is that the site will be eliminating the former D'Angelo sandwich shop that existed on, or still exists on the site and was generating traffic up until a few years ago. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the traffic study focused on essentially the site driveway intersections with Middlesex Turnpike, and then the intersection just to the north of that, the signalized intersection of Middlesex Turnpike and Wheeler Road. Those are going to be the intersections mostly impacted by the project because we expect the majority, about 70% of the traffic, to and from the north of the site, which is essentially what we see under existing conditions happening, and we see no reason why that should change. It's a gas station today, and will remain a gas station in the future. So the study essentially focuses on establishing existing traffic conditions, predicting what future conditions will be like both with and without the project, and analyzing the impacts of that project for those future conditions. So the existing conditions, we did counts back in November of last year. Obviously, those were conditions still drastically affected by the current pandemic. So we did research historical count data. We're able to find a functional design report that was done for some improvements in the area from back in 2016 and compared those volumes. And we actually found that, for example, the morning peak hour had to be increased by 49%. The afternoon rush hour had to be increased by 19%, and the Saturday peak hour by 26%. So you can see that volumes, at least in November of 2020, was still substantially lower than pre-pandemic conditions, but we did adjust for that accordingly. We also reviewed accident history at the study intersections and found that all locations had crash rates below the statewide averages, and none of them are listed as high crash locations on the state's database. And conducted vehicle speed studies and site distance analysis at the site driveways, which showed us that there's currently ample site distances to exceed the requirements based on the observed speeds. Future conditions, as with any traffic study in the state, we projected out to a 7-year design horizon to the year 2028. We did that again using historical growth patterns that showed us that historically this area has experienced around a 1% per year traffic growth rate. And we did also investigate other development projects in Burlington and surrounding communities to see if there are any specific developments that might impact traffic in this area. The trip generation, we obviously did count at the existing gas station, but just like the volume of traffic on Middlesex Turnpike is lower because of the coronavirus pandemic, the existing gas station is also currently generating less traffic than it would have or did prior to the pandemic. And we used sales transaction data for the month that we did the counts in November of 2020 and compared that to November of 2019 and found that the weekday volumes are about 21 to 22% lower than pre-pandemic conditions, and Saturday conditions about 8.5% lower. So we did adjust those numbers upward accordingly. We also generated traffic for the former D'Angelo's shop because that can be reoccupied at any time again, and should be considered when you compare site-generated volumes. And what we find at the end of the day, when we compare the existing total trip generation with the proposed trip generation, is that there obviously will be an increase in traffic due to the increase in number of fueling positions and size of the convenience store. But that increase won't be that significant. When you take the fact that these types of uses generate the majority of the traffic from the adjacent traffic stream, what we expect is an increase of about 52 vehicle trips, that's total in and out during the morning peak hour, an additional 20 vehicle trips during the PM peak hour, and only about 5 additional vehicles during the Saturday peak hour. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that D'Angelo's obviously generated a significant amount of traffic during the Saturday midday peak. So when we run the capacity analysis, both with and without the project, we found that the Middlesex Turnpike and Wheeler Road intersection currently operates at acceptable levels of service, will continue to operate at acceptable levels both with and without this project, with no change in level of service. At the site driveway intersections, we do expect long delays for traffic exiting the site, which is no different than exists at the driveways today and any other driveway along the road. But the left turns into the site will be operating at acceptable levels. So while there may be long delays for traffic to get out of the site, it will not impact traffic along Middlesex Turnpike because the left turns, and by the way, the left turning vehicles do have a dedicated left turn lane where they can safely sit outside of the flow of traffic to make their turns. One other thing is that I want to mention regarding analysis. These capacity analysis models always assume a uniform arrival rate of traffic on Middlesex Turnpike and don't really take into account the effect of nearby traffic signals, such as at Wheeler Road. And when you have that situation, you create a platooning effect of traffic that generates additional gaps that otherwise would not be there. So the model doesn't take that into consideration. And the reason I mention that is that I expect the actual delays will be a lot less than what I've shown in my report. And finally, I did make a number of recommendations which have been incorporated onto this latest plan. Originally, this plan was presented where the northern driveway was also proposed to have both entering and exiting traffic. And I recommended that the northern driveway be restricted to exit only. And the reason for that is there is, as you can see on this plan, no left turn lane into that northern driveway currently. So any traffic that would want to make that turn would be sitting in traffic, and that's not a good thing. And so we've modified and changed the plans to have all entering traffic happen either via the center driveway or the southern driveway. Along with that, we recommended, obviously, do not enter signs posted facing Middlesex Turnpike at the northern driveway to reinforce that turn restriction, to have a stop line all the way across that driveway, and then to post stop lines and stop signs at the remaining exits. And last recommendation was to, as we do with any traffic study, make sure that any plantings along the site frontage don't impede sight lines for vehicles exiting the site. And that would be it. With that, Bill, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Ron. Just one last note I think I neglected to say was we are before the Board of Health on the 25th, the next week. And there is, Noria has retained an LSP, given the nature of the site and historical sort of data on this. And the Board of Health staff is in touch with the LSP as well. So we'll make some good progress on that. I don't think the Board of Health has submitted any comments yet. The last time I looked, but I know Christine Mathis is working on them. And again, we'll be before the Board of Health on the 25th. and back to the Concom as well next week on the 27th, I believe. So I think that's all the presenters we have. We'll hand it back to the board for questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Brady, would you like to read our departmental reports, please?
I certainly can. As of right now, we currently only have one comment, and that's from the Board of Selectmen. And it simply states if any indoor seating is being proposed inside the restaurant. And in this case, it's a 4269 special permit for a fast food order establishment. But anyways, that portion may require a victualler's license may need to be obtained. And that is all, Madam Chair.
Okay, I do want to note that we did receive a letter from one of the abutters, Burlington Gateway LP. You know, while they said they have no opposition to the project, their only request that the town of Burlington considers and addresses any potential downstream flooding issues that may arise from the project, as well as the ongoing issues of the beaver damming the water flow. Just will let you folks know that as well. I'm going to turn this over to my fellow board members.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
This is Liz. I just wanted this letter that was received came from the Burlington Gateway LP that you were just referring to. They are the property owners who run the Bed Bath & Beyond and Trader Joe's parking lot. And they do wanted to make sure that the town was aware of kind of issues with Vinebrook. However, John Keeley, head of conservation, came into our office this afternoon and said that they are actually upstream of this site, not downstream of this site. So I just want the board to know that. But yes, there have been beaver issues in this general area in Vinebrook that the town is aware of. So just with that, I said my piece.
Madam Chair, may I intervene as well?
By all means.
Thanks. I just want to remind the board here. So the gas station is a non-conforming use. The D'Angelo's is not a non-conforming use. So there is a reason why the site needed to be configured as such. The entire gas portion of the use must stay within the existing boundaries of the existing gas station site. So that's why you're looking at the red line there. Whereas the gas, and that was a big conversation from a long time ago when we started talking about this, and then actually like pre-COVID, and then we haven't seen you guys for a while. But anyway, so the gas operation, both internal to the building as well as the pumps and all of the associated, needed to be on the former gas station. So that was a big reason why the site looks as it does. You do need to make a non-conforming use at the existing the non-conforming use, the expanded non-conforming use, because you are increasing the gas pumps in use, is not significantly more detrimental than the existing use. So that is something you need to consider here. Can you go back to the colored plan that was up earlier? Yes. I also wanted to note that the site has a lot of concrete curb. We would recommend that it would be vertical granite curbing, especially around the back, around any drainage structures. But because of the site and the nature of the use, and really because it's not a huge site, we would prefer vertical granite curbing. As mentioned, going from 4 to 6 pumps, 8 to 12 actual station, like gas filling station. All new tanks. We did mention that any sidewalk across the front that was, we did a lot of new sidewalk along this recent, well, not we, but through MassWorks grants. So, but if there's any sidewalk along the front that wasn't part of that project that needed to be replaced and or fixed with the new, modification of curb cuts. We wanted to talk about, if you look at the front of the building, and I appreciated the response that was given at DCM and wanted to make sure the board had the explanation. They have the parking in front of the proposed convenience store. There is no sidewalk. It's all at grade, and they're proposing bollards across the front, which is not a little atypical to what we typically see. They did have a reason for that, and I want to make sure that you hear that. as well. And then the last question before I just hand it back to the applicant to explain that is the fast order food use. And remind me, is it the fast order food use similar to like what you're seeing at the Cumberland Farms where you can get like a sandwich or something and you actually order it from someone and it's you guys that are the fast order food use, or is it a separate vendor that's coming in to operate within the convenience store? So those are my questions for now. I also think we need to talk about, and maybe not tonight, but landscaping in and around the site, making sure it's robust landscaping, not, a ton of mulch, and stuff like that. So, anyway, that's what I have for now. We're still reviewing the traffic analysis and kind of the geometry of the curb cuts. I agree, it's not a huge trip addition with this, but anyway, just still looking at it. So I reserve comment on that at this time. So if you could answer those two explanation about the bollards and the flat as well as the fast food, that'd be great.
Thank you. It's Bill Toya again. I'll start with a couple of those and I can hand it off to other team members for a couple of those. Just a reminder that the vertical granite curb throughout was agreed to during the DCM meeting. So I'll let Luke answer if it's on the plan or not, but if it isn't, we'll update the plan to make sure that that's spec'd out properly.
Thank you.
And the at-grade sidewalk is, who wants to? Luke?
Hello, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Tom Healy. I'm with Noria Energy. I'm the Vice President of our Technical Services Department. So I'm in charge of our site development, site maintenance, and environmental compliance for the company. To address the issue of the bollards along the front of the building, delineating the parking spaces from the pedestrian walkway. What we've been finding over recent years is people with their cell phones walking with them and really not paying attention as much as they should be. We have a lot of folks that are not paying attention when they arrive at the curb and end up tripping, and we are the defendants of several lawsuits almost on a weekly basis, it seems, no matter what we do with the raised curbing. We're always having issues. So to make this more pedestrian friendly, we try to keep the sidewalks now flush to the parking areas and provide protection by placing protective bollards along the front of the building there and also along the side. What we do is we place, they are steel bollards filled with concrete, but we put decorative non-corrosive covers over them, and we did, I believe we submitted a detail, yeah. So we could do something more decorative like this to cover all those bollards, and these are made of a plastic material, so we would not have bollards that are constantly needing paint jobs and creating rust stains.
Thank you, Tom. On the sidewalk note, I think again during the DCM meeting, we agreed that along the frontage there would be sidewalks constructed. So again, if that didn't make it onto the proper sheet in the plan set, we can make sure that that happens.
Can you respond to the fast order food component?
Yes. So what we are proposing is there would be a made-to-order food counter. This will likely be an Amato's branded operation. Our company is a franchisee for this Maine-based company that is primarily an Italian food type of made-to-order service with sandwiches, pizzas, calzones, and that sort of food. So although it is operating, the food section will be operating under the Amato's brand name, it is operated by employees of our company.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna need to figure that out by the time we get to the special permit section, but that's all I have at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. I'll bring this out to my fellow board members. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question to the applicant?
Madam Chair, I have several questions, if no one else wants to jump in.
Sure, by all means.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Just quickly, on the fast food part, are you going to have seating inside?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, we were planning to have a limited seating area. There are, I believe we're proposing 6 small 2-person tables up towards the front of the building. So there will be a total of 12 seats.
Okay, no outdoor seating, correct?
There is no outdoor seating plan.
Okay, thank you. All right. When you spoke about the parking, I didn't quite get one of the figures. You had said there would be an increase of about 52 trips in and out during the AM peak. And did you say 20 during the PM peak? I just wanted to make sure I got that correct.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
52 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon.
Okay. You also mentioned that there could be long delays trying to get off the site onto Middlesex Turnpike. Could you define long? How long do you think it's going to take?
Well, again, and that's where it becomes difficult to project accurately because the model doesn't take into consideration the effects of the nearby signal. But based on the model, we're talking in excess of 80 seconds per vehicle on average. So that doesn't mean that every vehicle is going to wait that long. Some vehicles might be able to pull right out when there's a gap in traffic, and others may wait there longer. Obviously, that affects the left turns out. The right turns out don't have that issue.
Okay, no, that actually makes me feel better because when you said long, I was envisioning 2-3 minutes, and so 80 seconds is not as bad as what I was worried about. So then I have more of a, I guess a curiosity question. We've been talking a lot on this board about electric charging stations and how gas-powered vehicles are being phased out, and that by the year 2035, GM is not going to be making gas-powered vehicles anymore. And I'm wondering what your long-term plan is. Do you intend at some point to have gas-powered, electric charging stations at this site? Or what is the long-term plan? Because even though obviously gas-powered vehicles will be around for a long time, they are going to be phased out and will become less and less over time. I'm curious.
So I'll address that question, and Luke, you can potentially jump in on the design issues for this site. But we are proposing 2 electric vehicle charging stations along the side of the building where he's depicting right now. So what the topic that you bring up is one of the most interesting topics that's come up for service stations in a long time, and how we need to future-proof our locations for the increased count of electric vehicles on the roadways. So we're really trying to figure that out and future-proof. We're adding in 2 of those charging stations right now, and we are constantly looking at code issues and what the best practices will be going forward. Right now, there's some issues with electrical codes and the separation you have to have between the charging stations and the fueling equipment. But eventually we may see that you start seeing electric vehicle charging stations out more towards the fuel island area in that type of arrangement. But it's very difficult for us right now to predict what's going on in the future. But we plan to adapt, and we're a convenience store operation with fuel, and whatever changes this industry is faced with will be there. That might be more electric vehicle charging stations 5 years from now. Part of the challenge right now is the technology is changing so quickly that they have very large investments to put these EV charging stations in. And the fear is you're spending all that much money and there's not really a business model now that works to get a return on that investment. And you could see yourself faced with obsolete equipment come 3-5 years down the road and have to make another large investment. But we are definitely planning ahead. We know that the EV charging market will expand and it will be part of our industry going forward.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that because it's just, something that we've been talking a lot about at this board anyway. So those are my questions. I also have a comment though, just something I would share with staff and with my fellow board members. I'm concerned about the fact that this is a non-conforming use and that we're actually expanding it. And I'm not comfortable with doing that. The intention with something like this is that eventually we would phase it out. And I understand keeping it the same, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable with increasing the non-conforming use. So that's something that I'm grappling with, and I just wanted to express that to my fellow board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Vice Chair Gaffney?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a couple of things as well. With Member LaRue bringing up the EV stations, are those going to be for general use? Are they going to be Tesla adapters, or do you know what those are going to be for the adapters of those?
Madam Chair, if I may respond, those will not be specific Tesla charging units. They are more universal. Each of the units will have 2 different types of connectors that are most common in the EV vehicle market. And the Tesla vehicles could also use it because Tesla owners typically would have an adapter that they can use on one of the charging cables.
Thank you. I think we heard differently from the Tesla groups that they say the Tesla owners don't have those adapters, right? So, with regard to the gas pumps that you're going to put in, will those have any sort of video component to them? For instance, if I put my credit card, then the screen pops up and goes on with some advertising or some news or some music or sports or something?
Typically, we do put that type of media system into our locations, and one of the benefits we find of doing that is it keeps people out at the fueling position. A lot of times we have customers that are, they put the nozzle in the vehicle and start the fueling process, and then they are going back in their car or they're walking to the store, which we're trying to prevent. And this does engage the customers somewhat more to keep them interested in standing there at the car while they're fueling.
So when they're fueling, you don't want them to go into the store. So is the idea that they're going to pay at the pump and then they won't go into the convenience store, or what's your thought on that? I'm confused on keeping them there versus.
Ideally, we'd like all of our customers to do both, right? To purchase fuel and to go into our stores, but they are not to be going into the stores while their car is fueling. A lot of times they'll leave their car at the fueling position, but they're not supposed to be fueling while the car should not be unattended while the fueling activity is taking place.
But there's an automatic fill. You hit the thing, and then there's a tab there to lock in your right, so you don't have to have your hand on it all the time, right? So they can walk away.
That's correct.
So if you take that off, then they'd have to stay at the pump, right? While fueling.
If their intent is to walk away, we have to control that by other means. Massachusetts for many years, up until probably maybe 2018 or 2019, prohibited those hold open clips. It was a state fire marshal regulation, and they did not allow those hold open clips for that purpose. They thought it would make the customer stay, be more attentive to the fueling operation. But what would typically happen is people would take their gas caps or something else, and they would just jam it in the nozzle to keep it open. And that was a worse situation because the hold open clips that are on these factory manufactured nozzles are more susceptible to detach and shut the fueling operation off. Say if the nozzle were not into the fuel tank properly and were to fall on the ground, with the gas cap wedged in there, that fueling may not stop. But these are very sensitive, so any type of, if that nozzle were dropped, it would immediately deactivate the fuel nozzle.
Okay. And maybe this question, relating questions to staff with regard to the media component to the pump I know that we had a lot of discussions on signs and we revised the sign bylaw that there be no kind of media type signage in town, except for I think a couple that the town would actually have. So how does that apply to these type of media advertisements and things on every pump?
So I need to check just in terms of if they're considered signage under what the building department and therefore fall under the signage and moving signage and that wouldn't be permitted. However, even if they don't fall under signage, in terms of, TV, video, anything that outward faces into the roadway, just like as we've talked about before, the TVs that face out into the roadway at restaurants and such, that you certainly we can talk about that in terms of this permitting process, especially under the special permit.
Okay.
So
And maybe to the applicant,
louder
is it,
noises and some other stuff we can get at.
okay. And just to the applicant, is there an option not to have the media component to that on your pumps?
There is an option to exclude that. There still would be some screen changes for different prompts for the customer to give instruction on the fuel.
Yep. Okay. And I want to, I guess, go on to the bollards a little bit. We're very sensitive to the bollards, particularly plastic ones. Non-corrosive, I was writing that down, then he put plastic. I have two words there, plastic. And those tend not to, how can I say it, age well over time, the plastic ones. I know that you were concerned about the other ones that are much more aesthetically pleasing and they might have to be painted occasionally, but the plastic ones certainly, those don't age well. And just my own personal opinion, I'm just one person here, that the plastic bollards are not preferred. And maybe just the whole thing with the bollards versus a sidewalk, I think maybe again with the granite curbing there, I'm not convinced that you need those the bollards there at all. So for granite curbing, like every other place that we have, I think would be more appropriate. Do you have a rendering of the building? I know we don't have design control, but it's typically the ones like you have in the center of town, or we can wait for next week if you don't have that.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that, as you say, the design review question, so we don't have it available, but Noria has a program and this building would sort of, mirror that. And we can pull something together for next time.
Sure. Thank you. And then just a tanker turnaround, because when I look at this site, and I looked at the other one and I don't know where the tanks were on the other one. So it's going up and around. The tanker can, yeah. So the tanker, so between the dumpster and they're going to go over the tanks, right? And they're going to go, there's that, the canopy that goes under the canopy.
Yeah, there is a small portion of the truck route that will go under the corner of the canopy, but again, in tight sites like this one, that's not uncommon.
Okay. And then just my last point would just be I think was brought up earlier was the landscaping, particularly for me out front. It says to be determined or typical, I think it said there. And maybe even on the north side as well, there's a little strip of grass there, it looks like. Maybe there's some landscaping there, I can't really tell, but to differentiate that property to the next door, which I think is the Dunks, right? Is that the property next door? Head north.
On the north side of the property, there is a small grass strip here. It does have a guide rail situated within it. So we really don't have an opportunity to plant in that area. And As it relates to the plantings around the perimeter of the site, there was a landscape plan provided that identified the various species, heights,
Okay.
et cetera, that are being proposed in connection with the development.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that. I just saw that here with the typical. Is there a way to maybe put some on that grass strip? Maybe ornamental grass?
We could certainly talk with Naria as well as our landscape architects, if that's an option.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Member Cavina.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of things. First, on the fact that there's no raised sidewalk in front of the building. So there's actually no obstruction to a car roll. Say the bollards weren't there. There's no obstruction for the car from the car rolling into the building, and that's why you're putting the bollards there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay. I have the same concern that Bill does about the I understand their quarter-inch steel pipe, concrete fill steel pipe for the bollards with plastic caps on it. Can you make sure that if that's in fact what you do end up using, that they're UV resistant so that they don't discolor and chalk and turn into an unsightly thing? Because unlike steel ones where you just paint them, if that would happen, you probably wouldn't want to paint the plastic. In the spacing on the bollards, I think since there is no curb in front of the building is going to be kind of critical. We've got some narrow cars now, so I don't know. I can't tell from this plan the spacing between the bollards, but you might want to just check that and make sure that they're spaced close enough together.
Sure. Mr. Covino, the bollards would be placed at 5 feet on center.
5
so
feet
they're,
on center.
they're basically designed to provide protection against any size vehicle.
Okay, even like a Morris Minor or whatever you think. Okay.
Yeah, generally the
Okay,
space.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, given that it's a 6-inch bollard and you have the bollards placed 5 feet on center, you're going to have
So
an
you got
opening of about 4.5 feet.
4 feet. Okay. Okay. So that's probably sufficient. I'm just a little concerned where there isn't something to even notify the driver that he's approaching the store too closely. Okay, and my other thing, one of my other things was I know this was originally 2 separate businesses, and there were 2 curb cuts for the gas station and 1 for the D'Angelo's. But I'm wondering now that it is 1 business, is it possible to move the southern curb cut a little further north and eliminate the middle curb cut, so we only have 2 curb cuts onto the Middlesex Turnpike? Is that something you looked at, or something DCM asked you to look at, or has anybody mentioned that?
That's actually a great question, and we did look at that. The issue we have here, however, is given that we need to get fuel delivery trucks into and around the property. If you recall the tanker plan,
I
we
saw that.
need to
Yeah.
provide that route for the fuel delivery vehicle.
Okay, and will that happen during business hours when there are cars possibly parked in front of the building? Is that why you're saying that? Because
Well, the truck wouldn't be able to make the turning movement given the narrow nature of the site on the southern half. So we needed to provide basically a clear route where the truck could come in, make one circuitous route around the property and then exit without doing any unnecessary queuing on the property. Again, we looked at multiple options as far as tanker routes, and this was the one that suited this particular site best.
okay, and you don't think the northern exit entrance to the site will conflict at all with the abutting property south of this, which is, I believe, a McDonald's exit only out of that, right? that's something you looked at already and you're comfortable with that?
On that, I would defer ultimately to Ron.
Right. You're talking about the southern curb cut?
Yes.
Right. And that's essentially the location of the existing D'Angelo's curb cut. And when we did the accident research at the driveways, we did not find that there was a crash problem at any of the driveways, actually. And keep in mind also the existing left turn lane that exists on Middlesex Turnpike is designed to allow traffic into that driveway.
Okay.
The other thing,
Thank you.
just into your point,
ahead.
Mr. Carino,
Yep.
about trying to reduce the number of curb cuts. I mean, I looked at that as well. The problem we have is, I mentioned before, that we have long delays for traffic leaving the site, especially left turns leaving the site. And if we consolidate that down to 2 driveways, it will make those delays obviously even longer. This way we can split the traffic up a little.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. All set, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the board that would like to speak?
Madam Chair, it's Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Real quickly, would the applicant have a picture of maybe another facility, maybe for the next meeting, of the bollards? I'm just concerned of what they would look like, and it's good to protect people from while they're on their cell phones, but I just feel like it's a safety concern. A picture of a different building with the bollards in front of it to see what it would look like, maybe for the next meeting. It doesn't have to be tonight.
So you're looking either for a rendering or an existing condition of a building with bollards in front?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
That's all, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. May I make one further comment?
Of course.
Again, on the bollards. I understand from what you said, your reason for wanting to have the sidewalk flush and putting the bollards in is because people trip, I guess, because they're looking at their phones. It seems to me that they're just as likely to walk into the bollards. And I think what you're hearing from some of the other board members, and probably from me, is that we might be more comfortable with a traditional raised sidewalk with a granite curbing. I'm not sure why the bollards are better. I guess I don't really get that, because I think if people aren't paying attention, they're gonna hurt themselves no matter what you put in there. But just my comment. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may address that, I see that the bollards are one of the primary concerns of the board members, and we'll take another look at this just to address whether they're going to see a bollard if they're not seeing a curb. Probably just because of the height of them, they'd be more visible to people. But we will take a look at going back to a conventional style sidewalk if that's what the board so desires.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Joe. So I have some of the concerns of some of the other members as well. I'd like to see a rendering, as Bill had said, he'd like to see with landscaping and everything put into it. And then one question, you may have already answered this, and just out of curiosity's sake, in the there's a convenience store here. Was it your intention are you applying for liquor sales in that? Beer, wine, or liquor?
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm not sure we have any plan for that right now. I think we did apply with the existing store at one point unsuccessfully, and we understand there's some sensitivity that the count of we in our offerings at other stores, which is typically be beer and wine, not hard liquor. But we don't have any plan to do that right now. Market conditions might change, demand may change. We may take a look at that sometime in the future.
Okay, I'm all set, Madam Chair.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this matter, please identify themselves.
Madam Chair, this is Brady. I am not seeing anyone.
Thank you, Brady. May I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to continue this meeting to continue this matter to the June 3rd, 2021 meeting.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Great. Thank you, folks. We'll see you on June 3rd. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7Q through 7S together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond, Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Items Q is a public hearing, application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.2.7.5 wholesale trade of the zoning bylaw. 103 Terrace Hall Avenue, General Stone and Tile is the applicant. Public hearing application for approval of a special permit, no, excuse me. Item R is a public hearing application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.3.2.12 warehousing incidental to a permitted principal use, except hazardous and toxic materials and chemicals of the zoning bylaw. 103 Terrace Hall Avenue, General Stone and Tile is the applicant. Item S is a public hearing. Application for approval of a special permit pursuant to 4.3.2.14 incidental sale at retail of the same merchandise sold at wholesale of the zoning bylaw provisions. 103 Terrace Hall Avenue, General Stone and Tile is the applicant. Who is here on representing the applicant?
Good morning, afternoon, Madam Chairman and board members. Bob Smethurst for General Stone and Tile. Definitely outgunned with seeing all the fancy drawings up on there. I'm just a tile guy. And we're looking to move our existing building from 5 Grant Ave over to 103 Terrace Hall. Very similar situation as Ferguson, Sherwin-Williams Paint, and ESC Electric Supply Company, in that same marketplace. Any questions I can answer?
I know it came up. This is Kristen Kasner, Planning Director. Just quickly, uh, there was a question that came up just to clarify that you're not proposing any outdoor storage. It's all internal to the building, correct?
Correct. We do no fabrication. We just tiles.
Okay, that was my follow-up question. No fabrication. It's just a showroom. You're just storage of tiles and showroom of tiles.
Correct. Yes. We've been actually in Grant Ave for 10 years doing it now. We've been in business 75 plus years in Malden, Mass. 8 years ago, we merged with a company out of Connecticut that's allowed us to be able to grow our presence throughout New England.
Ernie, you're on mute.
No, that's all right. I was kind of talking to myself, but
Okay. Okay. Well, Brady, would you like to read the departmental reports?
I can, Madam Chair. We do not have much for this application. Engineering is it's standard water, sewer, and general comments is how they break it down. It is quite lengthy, so I'm not sure if you want me to read all. It gets to backflow prevention, all those types of things, but
I think we could set that one out.
okay.
Thank you.
That's what I thought. And then just quickly, Board of Health, pre-demolition, pre-renovation inspection checklist just needs to be submitted. And that is all.
Thank you. I will open this up to my fellow board members. Vice Chair Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think the only thing I had from a comment was that you know, where it was on Grant Ave in Skilton across from the Pigot's house, there was a lot of signage there that was unapproved, particularly feather signs, which I felt really bad about for the people across the street in that neighborhood. You know, as they're flapping around, they fell down in the snow and things like that. It was really not that good looking. And it actually was in violation of our sign bylaw. So I just want to make sure that we're very clear that the applicant knows what is approved for signs and what's not approved for signs, like feather signs are not approved. I did send the planning department an example of feather signs that were up there. I think I took the picture back in 2019, just if you want to throw that up, Brady, and have an opportunity what was there. So we know what's not, these are not approved signs. And I think there was A signs that were around there. There were things that were leaned up on the rocks. So those was up there a while ago, but there was a bunch of signs kind of up on the corner of Grant and Skilton back. I used to go to work there every day when I used to go to work, and I passed by it twice a day. And you know, so maybe just to make sure that's very in the decision, so we're clear about it, and the applicant knows that those and other signs that he had up, you know, are not allowed in town.
Not a problem. I was not aware of the, you know, the feather signs not being allowed. So I do apologize to the board for that.
Yeah. So I mean, I would ask maybe Madam Chair, is how when those signs go up and people aren't aware of it, is there a way that we can get you know, everybody in town, and maybe this is a good time of year to do that, where you know, you've got things are opening up and people have had signs all over the place, and we understand that because of COVID, and maybe there's a building inspector can just put out a blanket letter and show maybe this as an example, saying, yeah, here's what's approved and here's what's not approved as an example, you know? Maybe that's something we can do going forward.
Yeah, I obviously would want to take off the Genrose name so that we, you know.
Thank you, I
put them on
appreciate
the
it.
chopping block. But I think that we could, you know, I think potentially we could send something out to other business owners, or, you know, maybe post something on the planning board website. I'm not quite sure exactly what the best means of communication would be,
Well,
but
maybe we can ask the applicant, what does he think the best way, that if he were to go somewhere when he's putting up signage or doing something, where would it be easier? If you saw something, where would you look? And maybe we can put it there, you know?
I mean, honestly, I think I hate to say it, once you get into town, you get complacent and you don't go on to different websites to look at it. I think maybe a letter from the building inspector or some department in town. Obviously, anytime you get something in the mail that comes from the town, you're going to open it and read it.
Open it. Okay.
So then,
Yeah.
So
Thank
then
you.
you
Appreciate
you
that.
make that decision whether or not you want to, you know, push the envelope or not.
Thank you, Mrs. Smithworth.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we've been talking with the building department about enforcement in general and trying to figure out standardize. I mean, obviously to sit down and write a personal letter, but is there a way like, okay, this address, stick the address on the front of and then just send it? Was the standardized kind of, those kind of letters we've been working on, so.
I think maybe in Madam Chair, if I may, if we could send it to everybody, you know, in town with COVID lightening up, and you know, there's the proliferation of the feather signs. I know the applicant probably put them up because he saw them at Dunks, he saw them across the street there, he saw them all over town, so he probably said it looked okay to him because they were all the ones in town, right? So maybe if there's a blanket letter by the building inspector to everybody, like the applicant said, if it's a town letter, they're going to open it and they're either going to throw it away, they're going to say, oh, here, and there's a picture of a feather sign. Don't put that up. You know, maybe that will help everybody. I don't know, maybe the applicant agrees with that or not. If you got that and said, oh, I can't put up a feather sign now, you know?
No, I agree. I agree with it. It's, you know, if you don't know, you can't do it.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter?
I would.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Just one thing, really. We've been working for some time trying to improve the the landscape along Terrace Hall there, and I'm so excited that we finally got that sidewalk in. I'm
I
wondering,
am too.
I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to put some landscaping in on the front of that site, so, because right now, well, just, it would look a lot nicer if you could put some landscaping in along the front of the site bordering the street.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now there is some landscaping in between where we will be in the daycare. The landlord does take care of, maintains that. It will be maintained better with us in there. If my Malden location, for example, the building inspector there will be the first one to tell you I'm the one with the greenest grass on Route 60 in Malden. I take pride in the buildings.
Okay, well, we would love to see that. If maybe the next time you come in, we could talk a little bit more about what you might be able to put in there. I think, we're working really hard to improve that area and we're making strides, but every time a business comes to us, if we, it's sort of, we're chipping away at that area, trying to make it look nicer, and every opportunity that comes up, we need to take advantage of, and slowly but surely that whole area will rise up.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments to make? Okay, I just have one, kind of piggybacking off of Barbara's comment and the landscaping. So are you actually going to be taking care of the landscaping, or is the landlord going to be doing so?
The landlord, Seaver Construction, it is in the lease that they maintain the landscaping. Obviously, with that, if the board is looking for, more landscaping there, again, I take pride in it. I'd be happy to add what's there. There is some trees in there now that are definitely overgrown, and I think just some pruning of them would really, dress the whole area up. They did just recently come through and bark mulch the trees on the right-hand side of the building. I don't know if you've seen it lately, but they did dress it up from where it was at. Back, when I first looked at the building and it had the fake castle on the front of the building. It's changed a lot. Our customers are normally mid to higher end customers. We want to have a high end presence and a high end look to our facilities.
Thank you. I think maybe it might be helpful. I always like to see landlords come to these meetings. I think, if they want to really invest in their building and in their tenants, I think it's important for them to show up. So, if you could invite them to our next meeting, I think that would be helpful. This is a public hearing. If there is anyone like to speak on this matter, please state your name.
Madam Chair, I am not seeing anyone, as it is just us, Mr. Smethurst and BCAT on currently, so.
So, Madam Chair, if I may as well, if Mr. Smethurst and the Seaver Construction, if you guys want to talk, and if you have some sort of plan or something that you might want to either submit before the next meeting or bring to the next meeting of just maybe some landscape options. I will say I just Googled your location on Route 60 and there is not a patch of grass anywhere, and you have a beautiful patch of lawn in front of your site. So I trust that you will take care of whatever landscaping goes up front there. So if you guys can work together to figure that out, that would be
Could I
great.
also just comment one other thing? We are trying to get into this building as soon as possible. Currently, right now, I'm paying 2 rents. As the building inspector will tell you, we have a neighbor that is complaining about noise in the Grant Ave area between CVS and all the constructions down on Grant Ave. I am trying to, move as quickly as possible. So I was, and again, I'm a tile guy. I don't deal with. I'm trying to get this approved as quickly as possible. I think Brady has been extremely helpful since the very beginning. I expressed that we're trying to get this done as quick as possible. Is there any way to get a tentative, occupancy or anything like that?
I mean, I think between the planning and building department, I mean, we can work with you to try to get up to speed, what you need to do internal to the building. It's hard to get to allow you to kind of start with the special permit uses until, and since we're in COVID and these type of meetings, the policy has been to have, at least 2 meetings to make sure the public has ample opportunity. But, offline between the building and our planning department, we can try to work with you to see what, if anything, we can certainly move forward.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Folks, may I have a motion, please?
Motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of June 3rd, 2021.
Second,
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
yes.
Thank you, Mr. Smithhurst. We'll see you June 3rd.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
And next up is minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes of May 6, 2021?
Yes.
I have not, Madam Chair. This is Bill.
All right, so we'll continue that for next meeting. Other matters of discussion. Patricia Way, the definitive subdivision, is looking for an extension of time. Does anyone have any concerns on that? Kristen, would you like to speak on that?
I just wanted to, Patricia Way is between Taylor and Carlina Way. The old Taylor Street in the town center and the new Carlina Way subdivision. Liz or Brady, if you can bring up, I know we had the plan earlier, hopefully we may still have the plan. Anyway, it's I think 5, is it 5 or 6, 5 lot subdivision?
Yeah.
That was permitted back in 2018. It expired 2 years later. They're looking to continue it to 2023 to have 2 years too. So this is the site. They have owned this piece of property for a while, and they acquired a lot off Taylor to access a roadway in there. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, 5 lot subdivision. Off Taylor and Kinney. So it's behind, not behind the used bookstore, but kind of behind that. So this is just an extension of time to complete and build out.
Have they done any work yet, Kristen?
No, they have not. Nothing has happened. If you would like to ask questions, we can continue the extension until the next meeting, and we can ask the applicant to appear. We could do it. We don't necessarily need to wait until all the way in the back. We could put it closer to the front if there are quick questions from the applicant.
How
Or
long
if
has
you're
it been?
comfortable, we can move forward. We approved it in April 2018.
Okay.
So it's
Well,
been 3
it
years.
actually hasn't been that long when you consider that last year kind of didn't count.
Yeah. So April of 2018. So April 2020 it actually expired. And many things got lost.
Yeah.
So they're just I think they're looking to mobilize on it. And would need a year or so to complete construction. So if you're comfortable, can motion to extend the statutory timeline to complete. If not, we can ask the applicant some questions. Probably hopefully you'll allow them to go quick in the front of the meeting, but it's up to you guys.
I don't think there's too many questions that they could answer that would affect at least my vote, so I'll make the motion. The planning board hereby agrees to extend the statutory timeline to complete the definitive subdivision to April 11th, 2023.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any correspondence? Any reports from town council? Subcommittee reports.
Just one that's not really a report yet, but I know it's on everyone's mind. when are we going back to like in person / hybrid / everything else? We asked town council that this week. We also had an MAPC legislative breakfast, so we had a lot of legislators talking about it. There's a ton of legislation flying around as to what to do with all of these rules and regs that were put in place during COVID and how to transition back. But also we learned a lot of things in COVID that are actually working. So how do you keep those going? So I don't have any definitive answer. It's in process. She will let us know. But as of June 15th, I would expect that they're probably just going to do a, to allow us to continue until we figure out how to, go back. And then we can decide when that comes out. But right now it's in process. So everyone's asking the same question.
Thank you, Kristen. No subcommittee reports, unfinished business, new business.
Madam Chair, I have something under new business, I think.
Sure.
And that is, I noticed that the deadline for submitting zoning articles, believe it or not, to the September town meeting is towards the end of June. Excuse me, it's toward the end of June for September. And I don't know if this should be in the form of a motion or not, but I'll make it as a motion, and then staff and yourself, Madam Chair, can tell me if you want to leave it as a motion. I'd like to make a motion that the planning board requests that the planning staff submit an article to September town meeting to change the name of the IH Industrial High Rise District to, and I'm just throwing this out, to the IG2 District. And that's my motion. This is the reason behind it. And that is because right now the IH District differs very little from the IG District. So I kind of thought that it might be good to have that connection, like, I mean, some towns have RO1, RO2, RO3 districts. They're all residential. I'd like the name to reflect the fact that this is really an IG district with a few different dimensional regulations and also allowing parking structures. So I'll put that in the form of that motion, that first portion, if you want to accept it as a motion. If not, we can just discuss it next time or whatever. But we have to have it in by the end of June, I believe. Thank you.
I'm not opposed to a name change. Does anyone else have any thoughts, or, do we want to take a look and do a side-by-side comparison of, IG versus IH, and then we can move forward and make that decision?
Can I
Is that-
propose that the motion be amended just to say that to change the name to something, and then we can clarify it at the next meeting a little bit more?
I'm okay with that.
I'll
Are
So at
you
least
okay with that?
that'll spin the wheels a little with us, and we can throw out some things.
Sure.
Okay, I revise my motion to change the name, period.
Second.
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
I think there was some other discussion, that I kind of want to bring up, during our last meeting, or I should say during our, the meeting last Wednesday. And, in reference to the IH rezoning, when we had our last formal meeting, we had voted on each of the clusters separately. And when the article was presented to, the way that the article was written to town meeting was that each of the clusters, or let me rephrase this, the zoning decision was for all of the clusters and not each cluster individual. So it's my understanding that Kristen had a conversation with Amy Warfield and said, you guys didn't vote how the article is written, and we need to fix that somehow, some way. So I had proposed that we have a meeting last Wednesday, and everyone had confirmed that they in fact could attend. We had that meeting, and we had discussed, kind of what our options were. And in the email that Kristen had sent out prior to that meeting, there was, a kind of a description of what those options were, whether we were to revote as the article is written. We could withdraw. We could amend the article, or we could have two members of the board representing, a positive or negative stance towards that specific vote. I think there was some confusion on what the intent was. I don't know if emails weren't read or if I can't speak for anyone and how they felt. But
Sure.
I want to assure everyone that there was no ill intent. There was no, this wasn't something that was conjured up to make anyone feel like they shouldn't have been included or otherwise. So I just want to throw that out there, and I want to give everyone an opportunity to speak if they would like to. And then I also wanted to add a second aspect of, kind of the learning experience that that I've, I have from this situation. And I think that it's really important that within the next month or so, the group meet so that we can strategize on what we hope to accomplish over the next year while I'm chair, so that we can instruct staff accordingly and that we're all on the same page. We are one board. We don't all have to agree on our decisions at any point in time, but we do have to work together as a group because, our primary focus is the greater good of Burlington, and that's why we're all here.
Yeah. So, Madam Chair, if I may, this is Bill.
Of course.
I felt particularly disturbed after that meeting, to be quite honest with you. It was, and it maybe was something personal that I felt based on the way the conversation was going. The attendance of that meeting, which was, if it was a planning board, there were people there at the meeting that typically don't join the planning board meetings, nor based on their conversations of that meeting, they did not watch the meeting that we had, and were not familiar how it played out to how the board voted. They just understood that the board voted differently than they wanted to, and again, it looked like it was fairly one-sided on how everything wanted to go at that point. It wasn't a discussion of strategy. It was basically a redo of the meeting that we had and how we voted on that. And again, because the folks that were talking at that meeting, at the emergency meeting, and again, I've never been invited to an emergency meeting. I think it wasn't an emergency. I think we had time, and it looks like we have another zoning for town meeting coming up next month. So I think this was absolutely rushed to get in there where I don't think it had to be. And I think the process was a bit upside down. I hadn't seen anything like that before in my time on the Board of Appeals or on the planning board. So I think maybe what we do, with regard to this is maybe not have an emergency meeting if we don't have to. Again, I tried to understand why we had to go to town meeting. If there was some grants that were there, but they, at least from what I read very quickly, because I got some information, I think maybe half an hour before that meeting, and that meeting was an hour before the town meeting. So I think it was completely rushed, which in my opinion, with how government goes, in my experience here, versus the outside world, government goes fairly slow and paced, and everything gets done in a timely fashion. This was the exact opposite I'd never seen before. And I'm in favor. Look, I'm in the high tech world. We go gangbusters every day, every night. I was on the call last night with the Asian. We go crazy, right? That's not typically how I see it with town stuff. And this looked a little unusual to me, particularly with the attendance and the conversation with the folks that hadn't even viewed the meeting that we had. And then something went forward with a 4-1 vote, where 2/3 of that article, where the majority of the board voted against it a couple of nights before that. So I think I got trouble because how the full board voted was completely different than how this emergency meeting came up and was presented to town meeting. So that's where I felt, and I think it was I personally felt ambushed on that, the way that I was getting attacked on that, and I think that was just because I was when they're getting attacked, I thought it was wrong, and I think maybe in the future we don't have these emergency meetings where there's a select group that are invited to it or hear about it, and I think it was just played out very, very poorly, in my opinion.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair Gaffney. I don't want anyone ever to feel ambushed. So I do apologize about that. I also think that, going forward, a goal should be that we don't have, anything that's going to be presented before town meeting shouldn't be done the last meeting before town meeting. Maybe we have a little bit of a buffer so that there is no, if we did have to utilize that last meeting before town meeting, there wouldn't be a need for an emergency meeting. And we all know, we all have lives outside of planning board and things happen, but I think that should be another goal that we set forth, that, we're not rushing to the end line, before town meeting. So, maybe that will help curb a situation such as that as well. But again, I wanted to put this out there. If anyone else would like to speak on this matter, please let me know.
I'd just like to quickly just state that I reiterate everything Bill said. There was a communication to me that it was a meeting on strategy. My understanding was strategy and how we present our vote to town meeting. That's different than retaking a vote. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make the meeting. But quite honestly, my thoughts were it was a strategy meeting. Strategy in the over 30 years I've been on the boards, strategy, didn't include retaking a vote. Strategy to present to town meeting is typically done between the chair, the vice chair, and the department head, and they figure out how they want to present the vote to town meeting. Never was it, understood by me that it was going to be a revote. Again, it doesn't bother me, quite honestly, that the board decided to retake the vote and do that. It would have been, what bothers me is how the process happened. And I have to, as Brenda said, it's probably a learning curve with this stuff, and, I'm not sure, if that's the extent of it, but it was quite upsetting to me to have the understanding that it was going to be a strategy meeting on presenting a town meeting, and it was a revote. Again, I'm not going to belabor it. I think Bill said it. I agree with him on that. I think we move on. It is what it is at this point in time, but
Agreed, Joe. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I agree with you. This is definitely not something that, I've ever seen before, but we also typically vote the way that the article's written. And that was the hiccup that we experienced. And again, going to Kristen's email, she outlined, what our options were. So the strategy was, it wasn't necessarily considered to be a strategy meeting. It was more of a, we could call it emergency meeting. We can call it a strategy meeting, but at the end of the day, we had 4 options that we needed to decide. And even if we weren't going to revote, we needed to have an understanding of who wanted to speak on behalf of the folks that weren't for the specific article, for that specific article. So, again, learning experience, I think, on all fronts. The goal for sure will be, that we at least have a 1 meeting buffer. I encourage everyone, again, I know how busy we all are, to read our emails. Text me, call me, anything. I will always try to make myself available as much as possible for anyone on this board or outside of the board. But I want to make sure that we're all working towards the same goal, and we're all in the same team. Again, we don't always have to agree, but we are all here for the greater good of our community. So I will leave it at that unless
Brenda,
anyone else.
you said it so well. I just wanted to just say that my conversation with Amy Warfield because we have to report our votes, and she said, and she was very frustrated. It's a very hard, zoning's hard. Zoning's hard to communicate clearly. So her request was really to me to talk to you to say either vote the article as it is or modify the article to match your vote or other, just either way. It just needs to be more clear to town meeting. And those were the options that I did try to lay out for you in the email. So that was really the extent of the conversation that really sparked the conversation about having the meeting, because it didn't match the warrant. And anyway, just virtual town meetings are a stressor, and I just wanted to make sure that we did what we could to try to be as clear as we could. So
Well, I'm
it
not
sounds
gonna,
like
I'm not gonna drag this out any longer than it needs to. I just want to clarify. I'm gonna read the correspondence that came to me in relation to this meeting. Said, can you meet Wednesday at 6 PM to discuss IH zoning strategy for town meeting?
Wait, did you get the email from Kristen too, Joe?
I'm reading a communication that I got that was evidently what it was sent to me subsequent to that. So I assumed it was a clarification on what we were intending on doing. And that's verbatim from the text that came to me to discuss the strategy for town meeting. Not to discuss whether we're going to retake a vote, not to discuss anything. That's why it was odd to me. Again, I'm not trying to drag this out, but that's why it was a little bit odd to me. I'm like, I've never been part of a strategy meeting before to go to town meeting. That's usually between department head and the chairperson. And so I thought it was a little bit odd, and in hindsight, it was a little bit odd, but whatever. Again, I say we move on. But I don't like the discussion saying that it wasn't, because I'm reading the text that came to me directly, and that's exactly, no more, no less. I read the exact text. So anybody reading that text would understand that well, I think it's understandable that I would believe that it was merely a strategy and how we're going to present our vote to town meeting.
Madam Chair, may I say something?
Sure.
The two emails I got, neither one of them had the word strategy in them. I got one from Brenda saying, can you meet for a special meeting? And Kristen's was the one that said that we have to clarify our position regarding the vote was not consistent with the way the article is written. I never looked at it as a strategy meeting. I don't know if I didn't get that email, Joe, or
No,
I never
you
saw
didn't,
that.
Mike. I just said it was a text that was sent to me.
Oh,
It was a text
okay, yeah.
that I believe was made to clarify what was going on. And so I
Oh,
read
okay,
the exact text. So I know it wasn't. You weren't part of it. There were 3 people on the text, me and 2 other people, but it was a text that was sent to me.
Okay, yeah, because I never saw the word strategy on any of the emails about the meeting.
So, again, I think there's a lot of lessons learned here. I want to move forward in a positive way. And I hope that we can all continue to do that.
Madam Chair, Ernie, can I make one comment? I agree with Joe and Bill and basically everybody else that has spoken. And I think one of the ways we can preclude this happening again is to try very hard to make sure our vote to town meeting is taken 2 of our meetings before town meeting. So we have that additional meeting in case we have to clarify. We have on very, very rare occasions actually met the night of town meeting. And I can't even name which occasions, but it was like we were waiting for a particular piece of information, or 1 or 2 members were missing or something, and we wanted to make sure everybody was included. So we met right before town meeting, but that's that's happened very, very rarely. But I think if you, as the chairman, try and make sure that a vote is taken 2 meetings before town meeting, then we'll have that extra meeting in place. I think that was a good idea. I don't know whether that was Joe or Bill that proposed it, but a good idea. Thanks.
I think it was Brenda, but anyway.
We're-
So I
we have
didn't
one
mean to
team
steal
here.
your
We are one
thunder,
team.
Brenda. Okay, okay,
Thank you.
whomever.
Okay, folks, does anyone else, would anyone else like to speak or would anyone else like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Chairman Rappaport,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Cavino,
sure, yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.